Alright, Chapter 1. The tub grinder's 24 steel hammers, each swung more than 500 times per minute, converting the hay bale and Catherine Mae Blackston into cattle feed. Shreds of both spewed into an already 6-foot-high mound of steamy, soggy, and nutritious bovine dinner. Mason Miller used the front loader of his tractor to drop another bale into the rotating contraption. The racket dulled as the hammers bit into the thick mass of organic material, wet from the late January rain, common in West Tennessee. At nearly 9 feet high, the machine could spit out 20 or 30 tons of mulched product per hour. Overkill for what he needed. But they didn't come much smaller. He waited until the device chewed the hay below the lip of the tub, then hopped onto the muddy ground. An oil-spotted canvas duffel bag lay beside the grinder, a freebie from the farm co-op. He dropped to one knee and removed a work glove. The frosty ground soaked his jeans, but he was a farmer. Cold or hot, wet or dry, the work had to get done. He reached inside the bag, being careful not to peek, and let his fingers dance through the contents. After baking so long, most of the bones were on the verge of falling apart. Their collagen gone, the skeletal remains were as brittle as those sand dollars the boys found in Panama City last summer. He grabbed a couple of the bigger bones and held them up for a better look. A rib and the left femur, or maybe the right. Much easier to identify them when Catherine was still alive, or at least in one piece. A shame to waste them, but he couldn't exactly toss these into the dogs. Proper disposal might save complications later. He shook his head and sighed. Stupid. In the beginning, he'd taken what he needed and left the rest of the body where it lay. What was he thinking? Why leave anything for someone to find? This way worked better. It was like the signs in the park said. Take nothing but photos and leave nothing but footprints. Except, of course, he tried not to leave footprints and didn't need any pictures. He kept everything he wanted close by and recycled the rest. One knee popped as he stood, eliciting a grunt, followed by a chuckle. If the joint ever needed replacing, at least he knew where to find another one. He tossed the bones into the grinder and jumped back into his tractor. A gust of icy wind scattered shaft from the pile and blew a murky cloud towards him. He closed his eyes and leaned out the open door, letting the particles peck his face. The earthy scent of wet hay mingled with the barest touch of Catherine, enveloped him. He tilted his head back and savored the weightlessness within himself. He loved it all. Rising early and working the soil, tending the livestock and the crops. It was an honest day's work a man could be proud of. A peek at his watch told him it was almost noon. No need to quit working. The boys would be here soon enough with lunch, most likely racing to see who could get there first. 10-year-old Lucas, add 5 years and 1.5 feet on his younger brother, but he sometimes let Andy win. Even when he didn't, he made sure to keep it close. Good boys. Both were quick learners, too, always willing to help around the farm. He was truly blessed to have such a wonderful family. He glanced toward the house, hidden a few acres away from behind a rise. The boys would be here in a couple of minutes, out of breath and begging to drive the tractor. He'd sit behind them and eat his meal while they took turns steering, just like his father had done for him. Nurturing the bond between his family and his land was the best part of being a farmer. Things like teaching the boys to treat their mama and their heritage with respect, not being afraid to get their hands dirty and work long, hard hours to achieve success. The simple joys of a clean life. Mason closed his hand around some bones and grinned. Lunchtime. Maybe Paula had sent out leftovers from last night's barbecue. He had a sudden hankering for ribs. Chapter 2. The plastic clock's hollowness bored its tick-tick-tick directly into Jeremy Winter's brain. The Bureau's shrink said he had anger management issues, that his temper could flare without warning. No kidding. With not much to do except listen to the seconds tick by, anyone's blood would start boiling. He chucked a pen at the clock, leaving a tiny blue ink spot and divot on the freshly painted white wall. The writing instrument landed on the carpet next to two other pens and a pad of yellow sticky notes. Anger management issues. When did everything become an issue instead of a problem? Didn't matter anyway, as long as he got clearance to work. Employee bears watching, the psychiatrist had noted. Well, watch away. 23 years as a special agent with the FBI, and this is how they reward him. Moved from DC to St. Louis, his coworkers and girlfriend Maggie left behind. Reassigned from tracking serial killers to working white-collar crime. Dropped in a sterile office with a new desk, a fake plant, and not enough pens. And no explanations. What the Bureau wants, the Bureau gets. And they wondered about his anger issues. 47's too old to try to understand the moronic decisions made by the government's lifters, who made a career out of making sure the right form was used at the right time, and whatever. He sighed and flexed his shoulders to relieve the tension. It didn't make any sense. He's been fresh off a successful capture on the West Coast. The Boxcar Butcher, as the media named him, rode trains across the country, hopping off whenever he felt like it to rob and kill in remote areas. Lived in the victims' homes until he grew bored, and then jumped back on the rails. He had murdered a dozen they knew of, and likely more of his victims were waiting to be found. So sure, why let Jeremy finish his job? Why not ship him halfway across the country and reassign him to a desk? Perfectly logical decision by a bunch of idiotic... Deep breath. He took a sip of his lukewarm coffee and slapped the creamy white mug down hard enough to slosh a few drops on the desk and floor. Good. Stain it up. He guzzled the remaining Java and dropped the cup into the bottom drawer. No way the cleaning crew was going to wash that thing again. A quick rinse every week or two was all the mug needed. More than that, and the ceramic would never get a chance to soak up the flavor. Ew. The phone on his desk beeped, interrupting his thoughts and bringing him back to the present. Phones should ring, not beep. Too early for Maggie's call. And she'd phone on his cell anyway. Doubtless another real estate agent with "Welcome to St. Louis. Can I show you around?" call. No clue how they got his name and number, but if the Bureau and a realtor's resources, most their cold cases could be solved overnight. He pressed his lips together and glanced upward before snatching the phone. Agent Winter, he said, eschewing the special prefix. Nothing special about sitting behind a desk. Hey, G-Man. How are ya? G-Man. No one had called him that since Afghanistan a dozen years ago. The voice sounded familiar, kind of gravelly with a nasal whine. He closed his eyes and kneaded his forehead, trying to recall a name, or at least a face. Nothing came. I'm good, he said. I'm sorry, who am I speaking with? A snicker came through the phone. You don't remember me? I'm hurt. Jeremy blew a blast of air out of his nostrils and squeezed the phone. Who is this? Okay, this is Randy. Randy Clark. Been a long time. Randy Clark? Why was he calling? But they'd never been friends. Barely even acquaintances. Two guys in another world. What happened there stays there. Isn't that what the commercial says? Except it doesn't stay there. The FBI psychiatrist report, which Jeremy wasn't supposed to have seen, but hey, that's what it was good, that's why it was good to have friends everywhere. Said most of his anger stemmed from his time overseas. Brilliant. And the shrink undoubtedly made 10 times what he did. Yeah, it's been a few years. How are you, Randy? The man cleared his throat. That's why I looked you up. I could use your help. Jeremy leaned back, closed his eyes, and waited for his heart rate to slow. What kind of help? Excuse me. The kind that involves the police. I need to find someone. If he wanted law enforcement included, at least it's legit. Probably. You never knew. What's going on, Randy? It's my ex-wife. Ex number 3, to be precise. I can't find her. She hasn't been answering her phone. So I called some of her neighbors and they said they haven't seen her for a while. Her car's gone too. Jeremy scratched the back of his neck. That doesn't mean anything. Maybe she went on vacation or something. It's been over a month. The last 2 alimony checks haven't cleared. Last time I was a couple of days late, she called the cops on me. Wanted to send me to jail over $83. Jeremy dragged the side of his shoe across the battleship gray carpet. Guess they couldn't find a gloomier color. Likely a $1 trillion government study said it would hide stains while improving morale. Wrong and wrong. That what this is about? Alimony? No? Well, kinda. I mean, if she doesn't want the money and isn't gonna call the cops on me, then sure, I'd like to quit making payments, but I'm telling you, something's wrong. He rubbed his palms across his forehead. Listen, if you're that concerned, talk to the local police and let them look into it. If there's anything suspicious, I'll do some digging. I did talk to them, and they told me there was nothing they could do. They checked out her house and said everything looked okay. Talked to a few people at her job too, but didn't find out anything. They said that maybe she wanted to change. Maybe she did, but she didn't say anything to me. Sure. Did they put her vehicle in the system in case anything turns up? Yeah, but they're not looking. Said if they find her, they'll let me know. In other words, go away. How long do I have to wait before I can stop sending the checks? Jeremy rummaged through the drawer to find something to write on. Never any notepads or pens when you need them. That's a question for your divorce attorney. Yeah, but he charges me if I call him. can understand why. Tell you what, I'll make a phone call and see what I can find out. Honestly, this kind of stuff happens all the time. People decide they want to get away for a while, maybe start over. You'd be surprised how many folks simply walk away from everything they own for whatever reason. Thanks, G-Man. I really appreciate it. And you'll let me know what you find out? Sure thing. Give me a day or two. Now, who are we looking for? I suppose you'll want her full name. Huh. Everybody calls her Kate. But her given name is Catherine Mae Blackston. Catherine with a C. And M-A-E. She lives in Huntingburg, Indiana. That's little ways from Jasper, if you know where that is. He gave her address and social security number. Jeremy thumbed through the stack of file folders on his desk. My apologies, my brain isn't awake this morning, evidently. Or afternoon. Jeremy thumbed through the stack of folders on his desk. Got it. Like I said, give me some time. I've got a few other cases going, but I'll make a phone call. Maybe even take a drive over myself. Get out of the office for a day. Great. Thanks again, man. And listen, seriously, how you making it? You know, since Afghanistan. Better. It gets better. Most days. Yeah, it does. A few seconds of silence. So, I'll wait to hear from you. Jeremy nodded. Yep, I'll be in touch. Hang tight, Randy. Bye. Hang tight? Do people even say that anymore? Maggie would be calling any second now. She's the language expert. Maybe she'll know. Her ability to mangle phrases was becoming legendary within the Bureau. Just last week, she lectured a room packed with new recruits and told them you can lead a horse to water, but you don't look him in the mouth. Not that most people would call her on it, at least not more than once. He was an exception. She allowed him to tease her because she believed in respecting her elders. Like, the not quite 10-year age difference was such a big deal. Besides, his love of country music left her plenty of opportunities to retaliate. The cell phone vibrated, and he glanced at the caller ID. The hairs on his arm stood, and he closed his eyes, picturing the woman on the other end of the line. No anger issues here, and nobody could adjust his attitude like she could. He spun his chair and faced away from the clock. Hey, Maggie. Chapter 3. Jeremy parked his government-issued Taurus and stepped out into the early February dullness of southwestern Indiana. The frigid air stung his cheeks, and he clapped his hands together while checking out Catherine Mae Blackston's house. No sidewalks or driveway. Parallel ruts in the yard beelined up a gentle slope to the squat one-story home. The houses on either side had large trees screening them, but not Mrs. Blackston. No landscaping of any kind. A barren yard surrounded a faded yellow brick house topped with mismatched shingles. A white Huntingburg police car pulled up behind him, and a cop stepped out. Big guy, 6'2", around 225, and on the short side of 30. Stocky build, with a round boyish face and short brown hair. The man straightened his dark blue uniform. His dark blue uniform shirt, adjusted his badge a millimeter to the left, and brushed a hand against his service pistol before hustling over to Jeremy. Officer Choi Obian, he said as he extended his hand. Special Agent Jeremy Winter. Pleasure. The policeman ran his hand along the hood of the FBI vehicle. Nice car. Didn't you guys, I didn't know you guys got the Interceptor version. Last year's model? Yeah, it doesn't have all the upgrades, but it's got enough to do what I need it to. Which likely isn't much. He nodded towards the house. Does she own the place? Rented. I picked up the key from the landlord so we can go inside. I went in a couple days ago when we first got the call. But maybe you'll see something I didn't. The policeman shrugged. She's got a lot of nice stuff in here. Doesn't make sense that she'd up and leave it all. But people do some strange things. Yeah, they do. Job security for us, I suppose. Although I could do without most of it. Officer Obian shuffled his feet and licked his lips. Yes, sir. I bet you've seen a few pretty intense situations. Jeremy peered closer at the cop. How long have you been on the force? Going on my 3rd year now. Yeah, I've been in a few tough spots. People will surprise you, Officer Obian. Sometimes in a good way, usually not. Yes, sir. Her rent paid up? Yeah, she was actually a month ahead. The property owner loves her. Says he's never had any problems. Had to fix her stove a couple of times, but other than that, he never heard a peep. The rent check showed up on time, and the neighbors don't complain. She got a job? Officer Obian pointed down the street. You passed it on the way in. A furniture factory. She worked in one of the assembly rooms. Several friends there, but no one close. No boyfriend as far as we know. Jeremy nodded, shoved his hands in his pockets of his overcoat, and headed for the front door. Let's take a look inside. The two stood on the cracked concrete slab that served as the front porch while the officer dug the key from his jacket. A thick brown doormat with "Home Sweet Home" printed on it welcomed visitors. Though from the newish look of that mat, not many guests ever stop by. The policeman pointed towards Jeremy's left leg. I hope you don't mind me asking, but did you get injured in the line of duty? Good eye for detail. Most people didn't notice the limp. It'd been part of him since Afghanistan. One he worked hard to hide. Never failed, though. Every time he thought he'd tamed the angry scar that circled from his inner thigh to his outer calf, somebody would show up and tell him otherwise. The limp? Yeah. Man, you guys see a lot of action, don't you? Sometimes I think I should transfer to a bigger city. You know, test myself. See if I've got what it takes. He unlocked the door and pushed it open, motioning for the FBI agent to enter first. Test yourself, huh? Tests are easy. You know the information. Have time to study. It's the pop quizzes that'll kill you. Jeremy stepped into the small living room and waited, giving his eyes time to adjust to the dimmer environment. The cop stood next to him, stamped his feet on the small oval entry rug, and swung the door closed. So, did you pass or fail? Your pop quiz, I mean. Good question. Depends on how you're grading. I'm here, so yeah, I guess I passed. But realistically, not sure. Officer Obian raised his eyebrows, but kept silent. Jeremy took another step into the room. Has anything been disturbed since the last time you were here? Not as far as I can tell. Got some pictures on my cell if you want to take a look. But doesn't seem like anything's out of place. No, that's okay. Let me get through the house first. He held up his phone. No problem. If you want to see the pictures later, I'll email them over. These things are amazing, you know. The photos are backed up automatically, and I can look at them from any... What about her email? The officer gestured toward the front of the home. Her mailbox is across the street. The thing was crammed full, and I figured the mailman gave up on trying to get more in there. So I caught him a few streets over. Sure enough, he had a pile of stuff for her. Said he couldn't give it to me, but I talked him into driving back over and filling her mailbox again. He'd stuff the box, and I'd empty it. Did it 3 times before I got it all. Mostly junk and a few bills. I put everything on that coffee table if you want to go through it. Later, Jeremy moved into the kitchen. A few pinkish plastic plates rested in this dish rack that sat on the green speckled white laminate counter. Nothing in the sink. No crumbs. Trash can nearly empty. She kept a clean house. The house is a little dusty now, but the whole place is like this. Beds made, bathroom spotless. Do you think if she was going to up and leave, she'd bother to keep it like this? Possibly, Jeremy said. Maybe she didn't want the landlord to have to do much before renting it out again. Not burn any bridges, just in case. Could be someone else cleaned up the place, though. He moved to the refrigerator. Nature photos, mostly of trees, lakes, and birds, covered the white appliance. He slipped on a glove and lifted one of the pictures so he could see the back. Printed at CVS. She probably took these herself. Recognize any of these locations? The officer scanned the photos quickly. Could be most anywhere around here. If I had to guess, though, I'd say she took them over in the park. Lots of folks in these parts like to spend time there. The park? Yeah. Hoosier National Forest. Couple of 100,000 acres spread across the state. I'd take someone better than me. It takes someone better than me to pinpoint the location more than that. Probably won't be necessary. Any other photos like these? The policeman led him into the bedroom and pointed over the dresser. She had this blown up, I guess. The framed picture was a winter scene with sunlight peeking through a bare tree branches covered in ice. Snow covered the ground, and a pristine blanket and a deep blue sky outlined the trees. In the background, a gray-blue lake spread to the photo's edges. Any idea where she took this one? Gotta be over in the park for sure, Officer Obian said. No other place around here with a lake that big. The picture's not recent, though. No snow that deep for the last couple of years. Uh-huh. Is her camera here? I don't remember seeing it, but wasn't really looking for one. He reached for a dresser drawer, and Jeremy grabbed his arm. I'd prefer we treat this as a crime scene until we know otherwise. The policeman's face reddened. Sorry, I've got a pair of gloves in the car. I'll go get them. No, that's okay. I'll finish up in here. Look, I know this isn't my jurisdiction, but what are the odds of your department searching Hoosier National Forest for her car? Parking lots, back roads, maintenance sheds, all of it. The officer's eyes widened, and he ran a hand across the top of his head. That's 200,000 acres. It'll take an awful long time to cover that much ground. There's only 2 Forest Service officers. A few of the county sheriffs helped out when they can, but still. Understood. But based on what we've seen here, where do you suppose our best chance of finding her would be? If she's even really missing, that is. The officer shifted from one foot to the other. Yeah, I'll talk to Chief Bowers, but I can tell you what he's going to say. There's no evidence of a crime. If something changes, then we'll take the time to go looking. We're a small department, Agent Winter. Lots of jurisdictions would need to get involved in a search that big. No offense, but this is a local matter anyway, at least as far as we know right now. Jeremy breathes deeply. Of course, I don't want to step on any toes here. I told a friend I'd check into it for him, and I did. If you don't mind, I'll finish looking around the house, and then I'll be on my way back to St. Louis. Officer Obian smiled and nodded. No problem. I appreciate your understanding. We're all on the same team here, right? Plenty of real investigating to do without making work of her for ourselves. I'm sure Miss Blackston will turn up soon enough. It's not that I don't want to do more. I do. It's just that Jeremy placed his hand on the policeman's shoulders. I understand. Really. Don't worry about it. I'm sure you'll get another chance. Another chance? To get involved in something like this. Missing woman, no clue what happened to her. He motioned to the photo on the wall, wondering if she's there, waiting to be found. They both stared at the picture for a few seconds. Jeremy said. What am I saying? She's probably living the good life in the Bahamas with a new boyfriend. Let's wrap it up here. I can get back to Missouri in time for dinner. I know what you're doing, Agent Winter. Jeremy arched his brows and cut his eyes toward the officer. Is it working? The policeman smiled. I'll let you know after I tell the chief we need to search the park. Chapter 4. Six hours later, Jeremy stood on a small rise in Hoosier National Forest. In front of him was Denbo Cemetery. Its meandering rows of time-worn grave sites tucked into a corner of the clearing. The trees surrounding the sacred ground stood vigilant in the gusting wind, silent and unmoving. Tombstones, most broken or eroded by age, poked above the frozen earth, reminders of the skeletons sleeping below. Through bare branches, the brown fairway of a golf course was evident, every bit as empty and abandoned as the graveyard. That didn't take long, he said. Her car looks like it's been here for a while. Wonder why no one called it in. Officer Obian shrugged. Who knows? Not a lot of activity in this part of the park, especially this time of year. No reason to come back here once we put the word out about the missing vehicle. Didn't take any time to find it. Not like it was hidden or anything. Wish we'd looked sooner. You followed procedures. Nothing to regret there. I don't know. Sometimes it's okay to break regulations, don't you think? Probably not the best guy to ask. Wispy vapor clouds punctuated Jeremy's words as his warm breath clashed with the freezing air. It's beautiful out here. Think so? Some kind of gray. Seems kind of gray and depressing. Could just be the cemetery, though. Me, I prefer autumn. For the colors, mainly. But I don't get out this way much. I'm more of a fishing guy. Jeremy tilted his head back toward the parking lot. They find anything in Miss Blackston's car? Not yet. No purse or ID, but there is a padded black bag with big zoom lens in it. The camera's not there, though. Doors were locked. No sign of a struggle. We're going to tow the vehicle in and let the guys from Indy come down and take a look at it. Good. This place get many visitors? Not according to the Park Service. It's at the end of the road, so unless you're intentionally coming here, you're not going to find it. Kind of an odd place to take pictures, though. Especially this time of year. Jeremy turned toward the officer. Different strokes for different folks, I suppose. Excuse me? Oh, sorry, dating myself. Just meant that this place might be pretty interesting to some people. Gravesites back to the early 1800s. No other people around to bother you. Seems to me there's a sort of, I don't know, peace? Maybe solitude's a better word. I could see spending some time here. The policeman raised his eyebrows. If you say so. Jeremy leaned his head back and let the sun warm his face. His lips and cheeks burned, chapped by the wind. He sniffled and touched the back of his hand to his septum, shooting pinpricks of pain through his nose to now watery eyes. Have to pick up some Vicks on the way home. Slamming vehicle doors broke his reverie. Several voices intermingled and blew across the field, giving notice that the search team had arrived. Jeremy extended his hand. Thank you for your help. I'm heading back to St. Louis. The policeman's forehead creased. You're not staying while we do the grid search? Nope. I'd only be in the way. You'll let me know if you find anything else? Officer Obin scratched his chin and squinted. You don't think we're going to find her, do you? You might, but I doubt it. If she came here, it was to take photos. Can't think of any other reason to be out here this time of year. And where's her purse? If she was only going to snap a few photos, why bring her purse? Why not leave it in the car? No one else around. Lock the door and put the keys in your pocket. One less thing to carry. I might be wrong. Wouldn't be the first time, but my guess is she made it back to her vehicle. And then, Jeremy strode toward the car, slowing to allow the policeman to catch up. That's what we have to figure out. We? You. Your jurisdiction, your case. If I can help anyway, I will. The policeman pulled his cap lower and hurried toward the search team. Agent Winter, I'm way ahead of you. Chapter 5. Mason Miller zipped up his brown denim jacket and surveyed the farm from his back porch. Just ahead was the vegetable garden, its bare earth coated in frost. A ways behind it, several acres lay fallow, waiting for the corn he'd plant for this year's Halloween maze. And beyond that, 400 acres of pasture and farmland. Couldn't see them from here, but his small herd of cattle was over the rise on the right, back behind the new maintenance garage. Off to the left, 150 feet or so, past the gravel driveway, a new storm cellar. The old barn stood guard. On the northern edge of Crockett County, Tennessee, smack dab in the middle between the towns of Friendship and Halls, the land had been in his family for 4 generations, maybe longer. The official records and unofficial rumors got a little murky much further back than that. No matter. He'd pass the farm on to his boys, and they'd do the same. It used to be that handing down your land was a foregone conclusion in these parts. The family and farm stayed together. Sure, you might lease out your fields for a season or two, but the land always stayed in the family. A fertile heritage and secure future. Plenty of folks had given up, sold out, and moved on. But that wasn't going to happen here. This was their farm, now and always, through good times and bad. mostly bad. He cheaped out on the crop insurance 8 years back, and hail had destroyed virtually all of the soybeans he'd planted that year. Some of his equipment had been repoed, and every year since had been a struggle to catch up. Even the bumper crop of corn 2 years back had barely managed to meet the farm's financial needs. He'd had plenty of offers to buy the land, but that wasn't going to happen. Not while he lived. Besides, once you figured out ways to release the stress, you could get past anything. And nothing relieved his tension like taking a day off and going hunting. Stalking his prey until finally pulling the trigger. Deer, rabbit, coon, duck, didn't matter. The killing was what was important. But getting some good eats didn't hurt none either. Almost everything he shot could be fried or cooked up in a stew or ground into meat for burgers. Almost everything. He pulled his dingy green ball cap lower, pushed his glasses up his nose, and trudged through the muddy slop to the old barn. Glancing back twice to make sure the boys weren't following. Thick wood slats, faded to gray and rotted at the ends, covered the building's exterior, standing in stark contrast with the silver metal rooftop. Paula had questioned his decision at first. She said it was pointless to spend good money on a roof to protect a decaying structure. That the weight of the metal would knock the building over. He knew better, and she'd quickly come around to his way of thinking. They'd been sweethearts since high school, and married as soon as they graduated. After a few years in a small apartment, they moved into his family home. Mom had died years earlier, and Dad just kind of faded away after that. He started sleeping later, eating less, and going days without leaving the house. He even stopped whittling. His death came as a blessing to Mason. Watching his father shuffle through life was a painful lesson. The slow downhill slope toward the grave was no way to go. The farm became their life, and they threw everything into it. Paula rarely grumbled, could be a bit stubborn sometimes, but she loved her family more than anything. She'd stood by his side through thick and thin. There'd be a lot of thin. He reached the old building and paused. His granddad built this barn, and its bones were still solid, sturdy. The wind had no trouble finding its way through the cracks, but that helped keep the dust down. The old equipment needed a place to stay, and it didn't seem right to store the relics in the new barn, with its shiny tools and tractors and other gadgets. There was a connection between the old tools and the land and family, a historical link that needed to be maintained and nurtured. The old barn was his place to relax and unwind in peace, with no thoughts of weather or farm loans or crops or crop prices. This place was off limits to unwelcome visitors, which pretty much meant everybody. The secrets inside were his to keep. Mason unlocked the heavy double door and shoved one side open. The midday sun lit up the interior, spotlighting the wispy dust particles that constantly floated around the structure. Fluorescent lights swayed over the workbenches, but their harshness wasn't what he wanted today. He grabbed a kerosene lantern off the ground, lit the wick, and pulled the door closed, locking it from the inside. Sunlight shot through the walls of few locations, and he inspected each narrow beam, deciding none of the boards warranted replacement yet. He inhaled deeply, savoring the musty smell of dirt and hay. Sometimes other odors crept up from below, rotting meat, with an odd hint of sweetness, heavy enough to coat your nose hairs, but not so bad that you turned away. At least not anymore. He placed the lantern on a workbench and ran his tongue over his dry lips. Tradition hung on the walls. Reminders of what a good, honest life was meant to be like. It was the same every time he came here. He spent time looking and remembering. He ran his fingers gently over the scythes and chains that had been in the family for years. He fingered the once smooth handles of the shovels and pitchforks, now splintery with age. He inspected the old oil cans and wrenches and hand drills, made sure the horseshoe still pointed up so the luck didn't run out onto the ground. Pliers and saws and hammers and everything he could ever want were there, all touched by his father and his father before him. Corn hooks and sickles stacked to one side, hog scrapers and draw knives lined up on the wall, and bull leaders, and pulleys piled on the floor. Tools that were made to be used. They had a job to do, and all were still useful if you had an imagination. He glanced over to a distant corner, too far for the lantern's light to reach. Always the darkest part of the barn. Tarps hung from the rafters, covering the walls and blocking the sun. A plethora of vintage tractor parts sat piled there next to the entrance of the old root cellar. The underground space had also once served as a family refuge against tornadoes, but had long ago been replaced by the concrete bunker close to the house. A haphazard stack of broken pallets, crumbling barrels, and oak logs lay next to the cast iron stove, its open mouth begging to be fed. Soon. He pulled on a pair of stained leather work gloves and grabbed the hog scraper, a small draw knife, and a pulley. The pitchfork and lantern joined the collection, and Mason took another look around the barn. One day, all this would be passed on to his sons. Such good boys. He'd teach them the importance of traditions, just as his dad had taught him. Heart full and chin high, he hummed as he stepped toward the storm cellar, careful not to trip on the faded orange extension cord snaking along the ground and under the cellar doors. The pitchfork scraped the floor behind him, leaving 4 fingernail-like scratches in the dirt. It was a good day to work. Chapter 6. After finishing his work in the root cellar, Mason trod back to the house, kicking his boots against the back steps until the biggest chunks of mud had given in to gravity, then stepped onto the rubber mat just inside the back door. His glasses fogged, and he let them slide down his nose before untying his shoes and leaving them. His plans for Saturday did not include watching Paula mop the kitchen floor. Oak logs popped in the living room fireplace and shot a faint scent of smoking autumn through the house. He wandered in and stood with his back to the fire. His wife sat in a flower-patterned sofa, a book in her hands and legs tucked under her grandmother's handmade afghan. "Done for the day?" she asked. Mason shook his head. Sounds like those dogs are back. Got the cattle all stirred up. Best go deal with them once and for all. Paula looked up from her book. Want me to go with you? Nah. I'll take the boys. About time Andy learned a few things, and the target practice will do them both some good. They're still in their room, playing video games, I imagine. Good luck getting them off that thing. Mason kissed the top of her head. Never met a boy who would rather shoot a fake gun than a real one. We'll be back as soon enough. She returned to her reading. Mm-hmm. You boys be careful. Always are. Boys, let's go! A mumbled response filtered into the room, and Mason sighed. Okay then. Guess I'll take care of those stray dogs myself. Just need to, grab my rifle. Muffled thuds were followed by screams of "Wait for us!" and bangs against the wall as the two boys jockeyed to be first. Mason winked at Paula and headed to the gun safe. Told you. Boys, get your boots on. It's a little muddy, and we're walking. Don't want to scare off the dogs with the four-wheelers. Make them wear their coats, Paula said. You heard your mother. Andy's bottom lip jutted forward. But, Dad, it's not even... Mason tilted his head forward, raised his eyebrows, and peered over his glasses at the 5-year-old boy. Nothing else was needed. After a 25-minute walk to the pasture, the three slowed their movement and crept toward the barking. The dogs didn't pose an immediate danger to the cattle, but if the canines got hungry enough, and a few more joined them, they could seriously injure one of the cows. And come spring, when the calves were birthed, the dogs would be a real threat. They'd gone feral, and at this point were no better than coyotes. Best to deal with them now. Mason motioned for the boys to stop, and they squatted to get a better view. The cattle wandered about slowly, seeking any grass that had survived the winter. Near them, 4 dogs, none with collars, yipped and panted. None of them over 30 pounds, probably. All of them filthy. Okay, he said. Choose your target. Lucas, the oldest, spoke first. The little brown and white one. Mason nodded and scrubbed a hand across his chest, enjoying the pride swelling within. That would be a tough shot. Small dog. Hyper. Probably got a lot of Jack Russell in it. Andy pulled his camouflage ball cap lower. The old bright orange T sewn on the front, now nearly pastel. He squinted and bit his bottom lip. I'll take that black one. Bigger dog. Part Labrador and part who knows. Good choice. You sure, boys? Remember, aim steady and true. 1 shot, no suffering. Aim for the front third of the chest. You'll end it quick. Dad, Lucas said, can I go for a headshot? This isn't a zombie movie, son. You want to aim for small targets like that. Shoot cans down by the creek. Hunting's about doing what's right by your prey. End it quick. Yes, sir. Mason brought his rifle up. They're going to run as soon as they hear a shot. Get ready. The boys each placed a knee on the ground and leveled their weapons at their chosen dog. Got your targets? Grunted acknowledgements. Good hunting, boys. Here we go. Deep breath. Hold it. Now let it out slow. 3, 2, 1, fire. 3 reports sounded in the span of a half second. Mason lowered his rifle and watched the 4th dog scamper off over a rise. The cattle moved a few feet away and then resumed their search for food. Got him, Dad, Andy said. Lucas patted his brother on the back. Good shot. Let's go see where you hit him. Mason stood and stretched. Let me have your rifles. I'll walk over there with you to check it out. And then I'm heading back. You two drag the carcasses to the far edge of the pasture. Leave them there for the coyotes and vultures. Why can't we leave them here? Andy asked. Think about it, Mason said. Do you want to attract coyotes around the cattle? Of course not. Drag those dogs out somewhere secluded and everybody's happy. The young boy brushed his palms along his pants. Oh. They're kind of lucky, though. Lucas laughed. Oh, yucky. Kind of yucky, though. Lucas laughed. Yucky? Wait until you've got your first deer. Won't seem so yucky then. This is the year, right, Dad? Depends on whether you get one, I reckon. Andy extended his arm and held a pretend rifle. Pow! One shot, and I dropped a 30-pointer. Mason laughed and tugged the bill of his son's cap. We'll see. As they neared the animals, a low whimper floated toward them. One of the dogs wasn't dead. Small as the Jack Russell was, any shot probably killed it instantly, and Mason knew his own target had seen its last day. Andy's lab must still be alive. Come here, boys. Remember what we talked about? Doing what's right by your prey? Both boys nodded. Mason exhaled loudly and patted Andy's back. I'm afraid one of the dogs is still alive. It happens. Who knows why a bullet does what it does once it gets inside an animal? But what do we have to do now? Finish it, Andy said. Put the target out of its misery. Yep. Wouldn't be right to leave an animal like this. That's why no matter what you're hunting, if it runs off after you shoot it, you track your prey and finish it. Leaving an animal to suffer is, well, just about one of the worst things you can do. Lucas bent over until he was eye level with his brother. It's your dog, Andy. Want me to do it for you? No, Mason said. No, this is your brother's responsibility. He can handle it. We'll wait here. The young boy looked unsure. How close do I need to get to it? Mason flipped open the sheath attached to his belt and removed his hunting knife. 4-inch fixed blade with a drop point, or a handle with leather strap. Good for getting the job done. Mind you, Andy's still only 5 years old. So he's asking a 5-year-old to do this. He handed the knife to his son. Take this. You can do it. Keep a tight grip on the handle. The blade's good and sharp. Don't want to cut yourself with it. Just like we practiced, remember? Andy took a deep breath and squeezed his lips together in a look of determination. I can do it. The boy marched toward the whimpering animal, slowing his approach as he neared. He stared at the dog for a heartbeat, glanced back, then knelt beside the wounded canine. His shoulders rose and fell in time with his breathing. Mason shifted his stance. Can't see the boy's face. Fear? Hesitation? Excitement? Lucas's first knife kill had been professional, unemotional, matter of fact. Andy's knife rose and fell, punctured by a sharp yelp, then quiet, save for the sound of the cows moving slowly away. Mason didn't need to see the boy's face. He knew his expression. He'd seen it in his own reflection on many occasions. The joy of a successful hunt, the surge of adrenaline, the raw supremacy that came from taking a life, and the knowledge that nothing could equal that power. It'd been that way for Mason. He'd been 6 years old when his dogs treed a raccoon, and he'd shot the varmint down. Even with its left front leg practically gone, the coon was still very much alive, provoked and irate. The animal was a threat to him and his dogs. If his dad had been with him, he'd have made him shoot it again. Not get too close, its razor teeth could easily tear into his skin. And his coon was a whopper, big 16 pounds or more. Mason had dropped his rifle and unsheathed his knife. He could still remember the pounding in his ears as his heart shoved the adrenaline through his body, the tingling in his fingers, and the desire to finish it. He told himself the animal was suffering. Be merciful. Make it quick. It's the humane thing to do. All true. But not the real reason. Andy stood beside the dog and bowed his head. Mason edged closer and placed a hand on his son's shoulder. A tear dripped down the boy's cheek. Might be a couple more years before he understood the power he'd unleashed. You did right. Nothing to fret about.
Dad, the animals go to heaven?
The boy's got his mother's soft heart. Well, I never gave it much thought, but I suppose they do. Can you imagine a place with no animals? Doesn't sound much like heaven to me. Andy bent and ran his hand over the Labrador's head. Do you think he'll be mad at me when he sees me there for not getting a clean kill? Mad? Of course not. He'll probably run up to you, all wagging his tail and stuff, and lick your face. You did him a favor, son. Sent him on to a better place. The boy poked out his lips and looked up at his dad. He'll be happier there? Much happier. Andy thought for a moment. So killing's a good thing, then? Now he's getting it. It can be. He nodded and squeezed his son's shoulder. It sure as heck can be. Chapter 7. Jeremy moved his mouse in a circle, following the white arrow as it arced around the monitor's wallpaper. He'd taken a buddy in IT. It'd taken a buddy in IT to bypass the laptop's restrictions and install the unapproved drawing. But the picture of the tiger was his new favorite. A fluffy orange body accented with thin black stripes. 2 long, fat legs and 2 short, skinny ones. Think Groucho Marx with Groucho Marx whiskers below bright yellow eyes, all adding up to a truly regal beast. Rebecca, Maggie's 5-year-old daughter, was getting better with her crayons. Glanced back at the paperwork in front of him. Another white-collar case. Insurance fraud this time. Staged auto accidents. Serious stuff, to be sure, but not why he joined the bureau. He drummed his fingers on the arm of the pleather manager's chair. Got to focus. He cleared his throat and stared at the file, forcing himself to ignore the itch in the back of his brain. 14 suspicious similar vehicle accidents within the past 2 months, each in a remote area. No witnesses or... not happening. This case was entry-level stuff. Better assigned to rookie agents. He clasped his hands behind his head and leaned back in the chair. Leather. What is that, and why does it smell like plastic rubber? It's gonna be a long day. He cut his eyes toward the manila folder in the bottom left drawer of the desk. The itch needed to be scratched. But just a quick look. Catherine Mae Blackston. 2 months had passed since they'd located her car, and still nothing. No hits on her credit cards. The camera hadn't shown up at any pawn shops, or on eBay, or Craigslist. She disappeared. Ceased to exist. She could have left voluntarily, of course, but Jeremy had doubts. Strong ones. Maybe it was the paranoia of having seen so much of the darkness people were capable of. Present company included. His cell phone vibrated on the desk, dancing in a semicircle before he picked it up. A warm wave washed over him when he saw the caller ID. Maggie. "Good morning, stranger," he said. "I was just sitting here admiring this stunningly beautiful tiger drawing. Rebecca got the whiskers. Perfect." Maggie laughed. "Uh-huh. Looks like he's got a mustache, and shouldn't you be working instead of critiquing my daughter's masterpieces?" "I am working. I've got a couple of interviews scheduled today on this auto insurance scam. Doing a little bit of prep. Gonna wrap up the case soon?" Jeremy leaned back in his chair and stared at the ceiling. "Probably. The gang doesn't seem too professional. One of them will roll on the others soon enough. The dominoes will start to fall. Sounds like they've got the house of cards stacked against them." His heart fluttered. Nobody could mix their words like Maggie. "Oh, they do. I give it 2 days, maybe 3. So, what they've got you working on now?" A possible dirty judge. Some questionable sentences given out to a couple major drug dealers." You sound thrilled. "No, it's okay. Keeps me close to home." "Must be nice." "I was thinking about maybe arranging a trip to DC or something. Fly up and spend a couple of days in the office. Possibly drag it into a long weekend." "I've got a better idea. Rebecca's pre-K has spring break coming up in 2 weeks. How about we come to St. Louis? They've got a good zoo, right? You know how much she loves animals. And it would do us both good to get away for a while." Jeremy rubbed his fingertips together. Would she want to stay in this tiny one-bedroom apartment? Could he sleep on the couch and they could have the bedroom? It'd be the first time they'd spent the night in the same place. But did anyone care about that stuff anymore? Did Maggie? He thought he knew her, but hadn't considered the situation. What if Rebecca wasn't coming? What would he... "You got awful quiet all of a sudden," Maggie said. "Is there a problem?" "What? No. I mean, well, my apartment's kind of small, but you..." Her voice lightened. "I already promised Rebecca a place with an indoor pool. I'll find us a place as close as I can if the dates work for you." "Oh, sure. There's a few places not far from my apartment. I'll take some time off and chauffeur you two around to see the sights. The zoo, Brant's farm, the arch, all that stuff." "Sounds fun, as long as I get control of the radio. None of your twangy country stuff. I have to protect my daughter, you know." He laughed and propped an elbow on his desk. "Protect her? She needs to be educated. Develop a bit of culture and appreciation for the finer arts." "Uh-huh. We'll see. Listen, I've got to get to work. I'm really looking forward to seeing you. It'll be fun." His face flushed and he swallowed hard. Love this woman. He glanced at the file still open on his desk. A small photo of Catherine Mae Blackston was paper-clipped to the corner, smiling at him. "Yeah, Maggie. Can't wait. Maybe I can bounce a few things off you while you're here. Get your thoughts." Case you're working?" "Officially, no." "Oh, I'm intrigued." "Well, I don't know, Agent Winter. Can you handle a female partner for a few days? Especially one with a young daughter in tow?" Heat flashed through him again. Easiest question he'd have all week. "Depends on what you mean by handling. You two just get here." She chuckled. It's obvious you haven't spent much time with 5-year-olds, or you wouldn't be so brave. Gotta run, but watch your email. Oh, and I sent you a care package, too. Let me know when you get it. Talk to you soon. Hey, before you go, I saw they posted another opening for an intelligence analyst. You ought to think about it. After a couple of seconds, she sighed. Jeremy, we've been through this. I like my job. Yeah, I know. I know you do, but think about it. A lot less travel, more time with Rebecca. Those are good things, right? Yep. Still good. Just like the last time they had an opening and you brought it up. Maggie, I just think you think it's safer. A twinge of sarcasm and anger crept into her voice. I get it, she said. I have a daughter to think about. Only unmarried, childless woman should be allowed in the bureau, right? That's what I hear when we talk about this. He massaged his forehead. You know that's not what I'm saying. I'm sorry you're... Well, go ahead. Say it. We both know you're thinking it. Fine. I'm sorry about your wife and daughter, but that wasn't your fault. You can't protect everyone you care about 24 hours a day. I do understand your concern, and I love that you worry about us, but this is who I am. You have to accept that. He inhaled deeply. I'll try. Really. And promise you won't bring it up when we come to visit? Promise, he said. Good. Now, we both need to get to work. Let me know when you get the present I sent, okay? Will do. Kiss Rebecca for me. He held the phone to his ear for nearly a minute after she hung up, rehashing the conversation in his mind. He hated when she got angry at him, especially when she was right. She could take care of herself, but that didn't change the way he thought. Keeping her and Rebecca safe meant everything. He'd failed once, and he couldn't go through that again. It'd been a dozen years since Holly and Miranda died. His wife and unborn daughter murdered while he was off playing Patriot. He should have been there to protect them. The killer had never been caught. 12 years of guilt and fury and frustration. Anger issues? Yep. And then he'd met Maggie. Red hair, green eyes, and tough enough to put a man in his place, including her ex-husband. And Rebecca was a spitting image of her mother. He couldn't understand what the two of them saw in him. Once Maggie got the whole story, she'd been gone. He knew it sure as the sunrise in the east. He traced the crayon tiger's whiskers with his finger and nodded. It's been a long time since he wanted to be part of a family. Did they feel the same way about him? He thought so. But she didn't know everything about him. Not yet. And when she did, they'd be gone. Chapter 8. The insurance fraud case was all but closed. It took Jeremy 3 days, though he could have done it in 2. Suspects in jail, awaiting trial, witness statements documented, the DA's office considering immunity for a couple of lower-ranking members of the scam in exchange for further testimony. In 6 months or so, they'd give Jeremy an update. It seemed a long time to wait, but that suited him just fine. Close the file and forget about it until maybe never. Kind of like what the Bureau had done with him. It still didn't make sense. They transferred him to St. Louis with no explanation, and no notice. Pack up and go. Good luck. Godspeed. Don't call us. We'll call you. He'd reached out to a few contacts in HR, but no one seemed to know anything. Or if they did, they weren't talking. His new case involved bogus narcotics prescriptions. Lots of users and one doctor. As with virtually every crime, it all came down to the connections. Somebody knows something. The trick was to find that somebody, then start following the money. Shouldn't be too hard on this one. All he had to do was figure out which of the users would be the most credible to a jury, and go from there. Find the right connection and voila! Doors opened, and angels sang. 3 quick beeps on his desk phone notified him of an internal call. No need for formalities. Yeah? Agent Winter? Uh-huh. This is Scott, down in the mailroom. Got a package in for you. Okay. Can't you bring it up on the regular run? A chuckle. No can do. You'll have to come get this one yourself. Jeremy stood and bumped his chair back. No problem. Need the exercise anyway. Be down in a few. Incoming deliveries and mail came in on the ground floor at a small loading dock. He opted for the stairs and took his time. No hurry to get back to his computer. His eyes needed a break and his leg was acting up. Time to stretch it out and give the scar an excuse to flare again. He walked into the mailroom and stood at the door, waiting to be acknowledged. No sense in interrupting anyone's work, especially since he was in no hurry to return to his own. Help you? A young woman asked. I hope so. I'm Jeremy Winter. Scott called and said you guys had a package down here for me. The woman rolled her eyes, crossed her arms, and frowned. Yeah, thanks a lot. I'm the one who had to uncrate that thing. Out on the dock, of course. Wanting it each step of the way. Took forever. You know how cold it is out there? He considered letting her know that according to the weatherman on last night's news, it was seasonably warm for early April. Her expression warned him not to. Thanks? I'm really not sure. She pointed to the corner of the room. It's over there, behind the stacks of mail totes. Enjoy. I appreciate it. Whatever. He wandered over, searching his mind for what it could be. No clue. Good surprise or bad? Either way, at least it was something different. And the way things were going, he'd take it. Anything to get out from behind that desk. Even for just his chair! From his old office in DC, he'd recognize it anywhere. The scraped and scratched brown leather with the stain-padded armrests. Maggie. He plopped into the chair and smiled. The squeak was audible even over the noise of the mailroom. The left armrest wobbled. The seat leaned slightly to the right. His chair. Jeremy couldn't imagine how she'd pull this off. What kind of effort it must have taken to accomplish this minor miracle. He picked up the seat, and one of the wheels clanked on the ground. My chair. Maybe this could work after all. Chapter 9. Jeremy carried a plush, stuffed hippo in one hand and a cup of weak but warm coffee in the other. He nodded toward Rebecca as she hop-skipped a few steps ahead of them. I don't know how you do it, Maggie. She hasn't slowed down since we got here. It's like watching a human pinball machine. there's some there's some Dwight to see boys over there. The carrot-topped whirlwind froze, pointed, and looked back over her shoulder, the freckles on her cheeks almost hidden by the pinkish-red glow. I see them, honey, Maggie said. Why don't you run over and get a closer look? The girl yanked the green knit cap off her head and handed it to her mother. Hold this, I'm hot. Keep it on, I don't want you to catch a cold. Too late. Rebecca ran to the zebras, her frizzy hair reflecting the early spring sun, while little legs churned, their blurriness implying a speed that wasn't there. Jeremy laughed. It's plenty warm. You picked a good time to come. Temps are 20 degrees warmer than normal this time of year. Couldn't ask for a better day. He brushed his finger along her arm. Of course, I'd have thought the same thing if it was sleeting. It's a good day. Maggie scooted closer, and the two sat on the bench and watched as Rebecca waved and talked to the zebras. So, he said, you think it's nothing. Maggie crinkled her eyebrows and parted her lips slightly. What? The Blackston case. The missing woman. Oh, I don't know. There's nothing to indicate anything other than she walked away from her life. It could be something, I suppose, but there are no hits on any of her accounts. Not that she had money in there anyway. Maybe she was depressed or found a new husband, or maybe something did happen to her. But there's no evidence that points to anything illegal. None. If it hadn't been your friend who asked you to look into her disappearance, what would you think? Yeah, I know. I should drop it unless something new turns up. It's not like I don't have enough to do without creating work. And he's not my friend. I barely know the guy. He spent a day and a half in the bed next to me at Landstuhl Medical in Germany. I can't even remember what we talked about. Except he kept calling me G-Man. Drove me crazy. Listen. The cops in Indiana have your number. If anything turns up and they want your help, they'll call. I still think she just left. People get tired of their lives sometimes and drop off the grid, hoping they can be someone different. Haven't you ever wanted to get away from everything and start over? Rebecca glanced back to make sure they were still watching, and Jeremy waved before kissing the top of Maggie's head. Maybe, but not now. Not anymore. Not unless you two are going with me. A slow breeze moved through, bringing a chill and parfum d'elephant. Maggie inched closer to him, and he did a half stretch and yawn, landing one arm on the bench behind her. She reached up and pulled his hand onto her shoulder, scooted until their sides and thighs touched. His chest swelled, and his mouth dried. Good grief. It's like being back in high school. A family passed behind them, their 3 boys squawking about which snow cone flavor was the best. Somewhere off to the right, howler monkeys argued with each other, their whoop-whoops echoing from the primate house. A squirrel scurried down a tree and made its way toward them, hopeful for a handout. Jeremy squeezed Maggie's shoulder and ran his hand up and down her arm. This. A perfect day. He didn't deserve it. But here it was. Maggie tilted her head up. Got to go soon. Don't want to miss our flight this afternoon. I wish you could stay longer. I've got a job too, remember? Corrupt judges don't catch themselves. Yeah, they don't. But, you know, if you decided you wanted to maybe put in for a transfer or something... Maggie sighed. We've discussed this. The divorce agreement is very clear. Unless Rebecca's father agrees to it, which he won't, I can't live outside Virginia. And that's all we're going to say about it. You promised. Remember? No talk about changing jobs. His finger traced circles on her shoulder, and he slowly morphed them into hearts. Doesn't seem right. After the way he treated you all. He's a much better father than he was a husband. He'd better be. Jeremy cleared his throat and stared at the red-headed girl as he carried on a deep conversation with she carried on a deep conversation with the zebras. I'm glad, Rebecca. I'm glad. Rebecca deserves that. Being a good husband and dad is about all any man could ask for. Maggie nodded and looked up at him. It still hurts, doesn't it? You know, you can talk to me anytime. We've been dating, what, almost a year now? You don't say much about them. I'm not gonna pry, but when you're ready, I'm here. He drew his lips into his mouth. I know you are, and yet it still hurts. A lot. Sometimes I wonder what it would be like if they hadn't. I mean, if Holly and Miranda... I wasn't there for them. Maggie, if I'd been home, you'd have been at the office. Same thing would have happened. You don't know. You don't. There's a price we pay for the things we do. When I was in Afghanistan, well, maybe they paid for the things I did. She shifted and turned towards him. When, Jeremy? The question he'd know was coming. He had to tell her, risk her judgment. But if Maggie didn't understand, he would crumble, disintegrate. He needed to tell her in person, face to face, so he could see her expression. Try to explain. But not now. He wouldn't ruin this day. Soon. When you're ready, she said. Rebecca glanced back and Maggie grinned at her. She likes you. Told me that at the hotel last night. She thinks you're funny. Funny, huh? I do like to see her smile. Like? Love. After a moment, Maggie tapped his knee. No chance the Bureau will reconsider and bring you back to DC? Not likely. At least not for a while. I can't even find out why I got transferred in the first place. Got the "it'll do you some good" speech with a heavy dose of "we need you there" thrown in for a good measure. I'll give it a few more months and then start calling again. She sighed. It'd be nice to have you closer. He squeezed her against him, letting her coconut shampoo and soft floral scent mingle in his memory. Close enough? He asked. For now. A squeaky voice interrupted their peacefulness.
Giraffes! I see them over there. Come on, guys.
Well, Maggie said, I guess it's time to go see the giraffes. You ready? Jeremy closed his eyes, inhaled deeply, kissed her on top of the head. I've been ready for a long time. Chapter 10. Jeremy scanned the database summary for the umpteenth time. The doctor had been a busy man. 17,000 prescriptions spanning a period of 3 years. 1,200 patients. Over 2,000 different drugs. Yet less than a dozen narcotics made up 70% of the total. No question, the doc was nothing more than a drug dealer with a diploma. Unfortunately, proving that would take more than a database. He stretched and rubbed his eyes, which I read it was he stretched his eyes and then he rubbed them. Whoops. It had to be getting close to lunchtime. A glance at the nemesis clock set him straight. 9:40. Great. He tapped a finger on the desk, pretend wrestling with his desire to make the phone call. Let someone else figure out what happened to Catherine Mae Blackston. It wasn't his case. Probably not even a crime. Leave it to the locals. Toss the file and forget it. Can't. He pulled up his contacts and punched a button. Officer Obian? Hi, it's Agent Winter with the FBI. Yes, sir. How are you? Good. Just thought I'd check in and see if anything new had turned up on Miss Blackston. Afraid not. I went back out to the park a couple of weekends ago to look around. Hoped I'd come up with something we'd missed. Nicer weather, you know? But the wind's been brutal lately. Figured maybe the leaves got blown around and exposed a piece of evidence. Stupid, I know. Not stupid at all. I'd call it being thorough. Thanks. Didn't find anything though, so for now we're keeping it an open case. She's in the system, and if anything turns up, we'll get an alert. Great. I take it nothing else has happened around there? No one else gone missing? No, sir. Quiet as ever. The NBC station out in Evansville ran a story about Miss Blackston a couple weeks ago, but nothing came of it. As far as I know, nobody is looking for her other than her ex. He calls every week. Said he was going to put up some flyers around town and in the park. Jeremy stretched his neck and twisted his head. What's your gut telling you on this? My gut? Yeah. You're a cop. What's your instincts say? He hesitated before saying, the chief says to drop it and move on. The whole thing doesn't feel right to me, but I couldn't tell you why. No evidence of a crime, no suspects or motives. I figure people who disappear on purpose are either running away from something or running to something. As far as I can tell, Miss Blackston didn't have any reason to do either. You think she was taken? Well, if it was some sort of accident, we would have found her by now. With the warmer weather, there's plenty of hikers and golfers around the park. Something would have turned up. There's a volunteer group up in Indy that's got a cadaver dog. And they're coming down in a week or two. Maybe they'll find something. I'll let you know how it goes. I'd appreciate it. Okay. No problem. I'm looking forward to watching the dog work. They said this is the same German Shepherd that found Sarah Goldman a few years back. Sarah Goldman? Yeah, it was big news around here back then. Young girl, around 17 if I remember right. Disappeared on her way home from high school up in French Lick. They found her body, or at least what was left of it, a year and a half later. Jeremy's stomach churned. Where's French Lick? Opposite side of the park. And I know what you're thinking, but it's a dead end. They caught the guy who killed her, and he's still sitting in prison on death row. Although, he's more likely to die of old age, I guess. What with the appeals and all. He exhaled and ran a hand through his hair. Got it. You'll call me if the dog hits on anything? Yes, sir. Will do. Jeremy hung up the phone and leaned back in his chair. Both hands clasped behind his head. 9:50. An hour and a half until lunch. Enough time to line up a few interviews with the drug doctor's patients. He sighed and logged back into his laptop. 1,200 names. Sort by number of narcotics, prescriptions per patient. Here we go. Start making phone calls. Yep. Any minute now. His mouth suddenly dry. He closed his office door before minimizing the database and accessing the internet. Why did he feel like he was doing something wrong? A few minutes to satisfy his curiosity, that's all. Go to Google, search for Sarah Goldman. Can't hurt. A quick distraction to wake him up. That's it. 6.5 hours later, Jeremy phoned the Indiana State Prison in Michigan City to arrange a meeting with Sarah Goldman's killer. Chapter 11. Jeremy stifled a yawn and shuddered as a chill sprang on him. Why was he here? It seemed highly unlikely the convicted murderer would provide any helpful information. In the 5 years since they found Sarah Goldman's body, nothing had changed. All the evidence, at least what there was of it, pointed to Lawrence Berkeley. Almost 4 years ago, a jury took less than 3 hours to determine he was guilty, and 2 days later, the judge handed down the death penalty. They decided who lived and who died by the book. All nice, clean, and legal. Berkeley became the 13th man on Indiana's death row. And the justice system trudged forward. Jeremy cleared the prison's security and was escorted into a small room of cinder block walls and metal furniture. Cherry. Berkeley would arrive any minute, escorted by at least 2 guards. The murderer understood, short of an escape, he'd leave prison in a body bag sooner or later. Convicted of killing another inmate during a fight last year, he'd obviously opted for later. Jeremy had to pull a few strings to arrange this meeting, and he owed a few favors when it was done. It would be worth the trouble, though. Even if peace of mind was all he got out of the brief encounter. The interrogation room door swung open, and Berkeley shuffled in, clad in khaki prison uniform, and hunched over. His hands and feet shackled to the chain circling his waist. The prisoner dropped into the chair opposite Jeremy, yawned elaborately, and held up his handcuffs. Jeremy shook his head. Not gonna happen. Berkeley shrugged and slouched into the metal seat. One guard exited the room and the other positioned himself between the killer and the door. Jeremy studied the man on the opposite side of the table. 28 years old, but looked 50. Skinny, ash yellow, pockmarked skin, thin lips, and a shaved head. Teeth that showed at least marginal meth use. Neck tattoo. Only God can judge me. Guess the judge disagreed. I'm Special Agent Jeremy Winter with the FBI. I've got a few questions I'd like to ask about the Sarah Goldman case. Look, man, I'm not saying nothing without my attorney here. Jeremy nodded. Fine. But for the record, what I have to ask can only help you. You're sitting on death row. What could I possibly do to make your situation worse? Berkeley leaned forward and placed his hands on the metal table. Help me? The convict's eyes narrowed. You people are all the same. Nothing but lies. We both know there's nothing you can do for me. The last time someone said they were going to help, I ended up in these chains. So you'll excuse me if I tell you to kiss my... Fair enough, Jeremy said. You're right. I've got nothing to offer you except a chance to tell your side of the story. Already did that. You read the transcripts from the trial, right? The story hasn't changed. He leaned back and tried to cross his arms, but was hindered by the shackles. The truth don't change, man. I didn't have nothing to do with that girl. A jury of your peers said otherwise. Berkeley laughed, worked up a good spit, spewed the saliva on the floor. The guard placed a hand on his baton and moved toward the convict, but Jeremy raised his hand and shook his head. My peers, the prisoner said. Man, I was convicted as soon as they saw me. My picture all over news saying I did those things to that girl. They couldn't wait to get me. Jeremy crossed his arms and allowed his delayed yawn to proceed with full fury. Prisons are full of innocent people. I've done a lot of things, but I didn't kill that girl. Wouldn't do that. And wouldn't do none of the other stuff they said about her either. Well, Mr. Berkeley, let's run through the list, shall we? High school, salutatorian? We'll call her the valedictorian, because I don't know what the fuck a salutatorian is. Turned meth dealer, and sometimes user. Breaking and entering, possession of a stolen gun, and let's not forget about your second murder conviction last year. That's only the stuff we know about. I'm sure you have other hidden talents. And yet you want me to believe you wouldn't kill Sarah Goldman? The felon worked his mouth as if he had a bad taste that wouldn't go away. Where was the DNA? Wasn't none. Know why? Because I was set up, man, but didn't nobody want to hear it. Jeremy scratched his cheek, stubbly. Time to replace the razor. First of all, the lack of your DNA at the scene means exactly nothing, other than to hurt your whole "I was set up" claim. Seriously, if anyone wanted to frame you, the first thing they'd do is plant your DNA there. It's not too hard, you know. An old cigarette butt, maybe some chewing gum. Actually, in your case, probably a needle. Grab it, dump it near the body, and you're done. Wasn't like that, man. Yeah, I did some bad things. Got to make a living, right? But kill her? No way. Got nothing to gain from it. Never seen that girl until the police slapped her picture in front of me. Her body was found in the woods less than a quarter mile from the abandoned trailer where you cooked your meth. Now that could certainly be a coincidence. And when the dogs tracked her clothes to the rotten pine trees 50 feet from your trailer, maybe that's just your bad luck. But her ID? Come on, Lawrence. Driver's license and credit cards buried under your front steps? Man, how stupid do you think I am? Jeremy arched his eyebrows. You really want me to answer that? If I'd kill that girl, you'd think I'd up and bring her junk back to my place? Everybody knows to burn stuff like that. Burn you. Burn stuff that might, I'll burn you. Police can't do nothing with ashes. You might be surprised. The convict shrugged. Whatever. And no fingerprints on any of it. Don't make no sense. And then the cops get an anonymous phone call saying, I did it? No way, man. Dude set me up. It's not fair. Heat flashed through Jeremy's face and he slapped the table. Not fair, huh? Don't you hate it when bad things happen to good people? I mean, here you are, an upstanding, law-abiding citizen just trying to make an honest living. No problems at all until Sarah Goldman has the nerve to go and get killed nearby. You're not the victim here, Mr. Berkeley. The prisoner slumped and stared into his lap. I got a good idea who did it. I told them, and they said there wasn't no evidence, that I was lying. He leaned forward and reached his hands across the table. I'm in the mood for a good story, Mr. Berkeley. Fire away. Stacks. He did it. Set me up, too. Don't matter now, though. He got what's coming to him. I've seen the file, Jeremy said. Stacks was your partner. Handled the sales end of the meth business. Funny how none of this came out until after you'd been charged. In fact, you repeatedly told investigators you handled the business yourself. No one else involved. I'm not a snitch. Stacks set you up so he could, what? Take over your little lab of horrors? Sure. I can see that. One problem, though. Says the snitch rate. One problem, though. Jeremy pointed his index finger at Berkeley. Wouldn't it be easier to just kill you? Seems like an awful lot of trouble to go through when a bullet in the back of your skull would have been simpler. The prisoner nodded. That's the thing. I don't think he planned to set me up. We were tight. Maybe he found that girl's body, or maybe he got himself in a situation and tried to make the best of it. Know what I'm thinking? Know what I'm saying? Killed two birds. Check his file, man. Stacks had a history with chicks, slapping them around and stuff. Well, Mr. Berkeley, as I'm quite sure you're aware, your buddy left his life in a blaze of, well, I'm not sure glory is the right word. He should have stayed in sales, I guess. There'll be no more questioning him. And according to the files, he alibied out. Something about sitting in jail on a drunken disorderly charge, if I remember correctly. The convict worked his mouth again and twisted his head, cracking his neck. Look, man, what are you even here? You don't want to hear the truth. You all got what you wanted. Jeremy pulled a photo from his briefcase and slid it across the table. Sarah Goldman, 17 years old when she was killed. Do you think she deserved to die, Mr. Berkeley? I got no idea, man. I don't know nothing about her except what you all told me. Jeremy rested his elbows on the table. Really? Because I didn't know her either. In fact, I'm sure I know less about her than you do. But I don't think she deserved to die. And then to mutilate her like that? Well, it takes things to a whole new level of evil, wouldn't you say? Berkeley fixated on the photo. She didn't deserve that. Nobody does. And her family? Suffering for so long? Wondering what happened to their little girl? Expecting the worst, but hoping for the best? than finding out someone had done that to their daughter? Can you imagine? I can't. It must be horrible to still be wondering. The felon shook his head slowly and swallowed hard. Jeremy placed his palms on the cold steel table. Where are they, Lawrence? Berkeley's head jerked. What? Sarah's hands and skull. Where are they? The prisoner jumped up, sending his chair flying backwards. The guard yelled for his partner, and each of them grabbed one of the prisoner's arms. Berkeley made no effort to resist. Told you, man. I didn't have nothing to do with her. Must be the devil himself to do something like that. Find yourself somebody else to play games with. Jeremy stood and inclined his head toward the felon. No games, Mr. Berkeley. There's far too much at stake. Thank you for your time. So, what was this all about then? Jeremy studied the man before him. I had to know whether I believed you. Berkeley returned the stare, holding his chin high. And? You, sir, are a threat to society, and I'll do everything I can to make sure you spend the rest of your hopefully very short life in prison. But do I think you murdered the girl? Yeah. I think there's a good chance the jury got it right. Knew it. You people only hear what you... Enough with playing the victim. Jeremy scooped up his file and walked around the table until he stood face to face with the convict. I also think there's a possibility, a slight one, that you didn't kill her. The prisoner shifted on his feet. So you're gonna reopen the case? No, Jeremy said. I'm not. You've told me nothing the police didn't already know. What's the point then? Waste of my time, man. Jeremy held up the photo, clenching it so tightly that the picture creased. The point, Mr. Berkeley, is to make sure no one ends up like Sarah Goldman. Chapter 12. Jeremy held a photo in each hand. Catherine Mae Blackston on the left, Sarah Goldman on the right. Middle-aged brunette and blonde teenager. Meticulously applied makeup versus multiple facial piercings. Moderately overweight and borderline anorexic. Both Caucasian. In other words, nothing. He placed the pictures on his desk side by side and clasped his hands behind his neck, pushing back against them. Was he wasting his time? No other murdered woman around the park in the last dozen years. Nothing linked these two together other than Hoosier National Forest. And that was flimsy at best. Certainly not enough to go to his boss with. Deputy Director Bailey had not been in a good mood since, well, a long time. And if he found out Jeremy was spending part of his day on work that had nothing to do with the assigned white-collar case, his attitude would get a lot worse. Without hard evidence, Jeremy had to keep his suspicions under wraps. Best not to antagonize the boss. Bailey's conversations with Jeremy had become curt, almost terse. Something had changed. But what? He tapped his fingers on the edge of his laptop. The NCIC database showed more than 50 other missing women in Indiana. Half of those within the last 5 years. The National Crime Information Center's data was incredibly useful when it wasn't overwhelming. Not too many, too short though, but probably only the tip of the iceberg. If no one reported them gone, or if the police believed they left on their own accord, they wouldn't be on the list. Still, it was worth a look. Anything to scratch the nagging itch. He stretched his arms high overhead, shook his hands vigorously, and pulled his computer towards him. Another sip of bitter Java from his coffee mug finally stained the slightest of beige, and then his cell phone vibrated, and Jeremy checked the caller ID. Speak of the devil, Bailey. Doubtless wanting an update on the prescription-pushing doctor, the case would be presented to the prosecutor in a week, maybe less. He had 3 more interviews set for this afternoon. At this point, he needed to make sure his witnesses, many of them drug abusers, were reliable enough to testify. Jeremy cleared his throat and answered the phone. Good morning, sir. How can I help you? Morning, Agent Winter. I'm putting together this month's updates for the powers that be. What's going on with your bogus prescriptions case? Wrapping it up now, sir. Prosecutor will have the file within a week or so. I expect it'll be fairly easy indictment. The doctor's got a passport, so I'm certain they're going to recommend no bail if possible. Excellent. Good job on that. What's next? Should he take the chance? Mention his suspicion of a serial killer stalking public leads? Stalking public lands? No. The expression's true. It's a lot easier to get forgiveness than permission. Got a couple of options, sir, but it'll probably be a car cloning ring based in central Missouri. They're grabbing sports cars and SUVs out of St. Louis, switching the bins, and reselling them on the internet. Hold on, Winter. A scraping noise filtered through the phone as the director covered the mouthpiece. Janice! We got more coffee out there? Okay, I'm back. So, a car cloning ring? Oh, that's next? Looks like it. Got it. If you could explain something, though, I'm not clear on how either your current case or the auto thefts require a visit to the Indiana State Prison. Jeremy tugged at his shirt collar and covered the phone to block his mumbled word selection. Sir? We're the FBI, Agent Winter. It's our job to know things. Now, what does Lawrence Bailey have to do with these cases? Nothing, sir. It's something else I'm working on. At this point, I have a theory. No point in wasting your time with details. I see. It seems to me that your time's being wasted. Not mine. Worse. You're throwing away taxpayers' dollars. Your priority is to work the cases you're assigned. Hold on. Muttering trickled through the phone, and a short laugh followed. Thank you, Janice. Okay, Agent Winter. Anything else you do cannot and will not detract from your assigned investigation. Clear? Uh-oh. The taxpayers. Never good when he went there. Yes, sir. I understand. Okay. Anything else? Jeremy took a deep breath. Sir, I was wondering how much longer I'd be assigned here. In St. Louis, I mean. Is there a problem? Not a problem. It's just that DC seemed to be a better fit for me. Uh-huh. How so? How could he explain without sounding like a whiner? I feel that my skill set is more attuned to working nationwide cases rather than local issues. Bailey chuckled. Your skill set is more attuned? You planning to run for office, Agent Winter? Maybe filling out resumes? I get enough people talking in circles without you doing it too. I think what you mean is you like working the bigger cases, especially the violent ones. With your history, I suppose that's understandable. Jeremy grimaced. His history. Holly and Miranda. And the nightmare of Afghanistan. The sins of the past. Forgotten by most, but remembered by the FBI. And himself? Funny. So few people knew the story, and the ones who did thought he was a hero. Still, he was a risk to the Bureau. What with the things he'd seen and done? Was that why they shipped him off? But why now? Sir, I believe I've proved myself to be steady and reliable. You have. I'm with you on this. But give it a little more time. Listen, I'm running late for a meeting. Let me know when the doctor is indicted, and give Agent Keeley my best. Jeremy hung up the phone. Agent Maggie Keeley. Was there anything Bailey didn't know? Not likely. Best to stay buried in work. Close some cases, and then revisit the possibility of transferring back as soon as he checked one more thing. He turned his focus to the database of missing women and sorted by the available categories, desperate to find something that stood out. Nothing. A perfectly random sampling of American females. He sorted them by location and plotted each on an online map. A few of the women lived close to the national forest, but as large as the park was, that could easily be the result of coincidence. He printed the list and circled the names of the 3 closest to the public land as a good place to start as many. He slid the file back into the desk drawer and made himself look away, like a kid whose parents teased with a wrapped birthday present. Not today, honey. You can open it tomorrow. And no peeking. He sighed and opened the case file for the prescription peddling doctor. Get this done, and you can open your gift. Maybe. Later. Chapter 13. The hockey game ended, and Jeremy switched off the TV, effectively casting his bedroom into darkness except for the flashing green light on his cell phone. After a quick check for any urgent emails, he replaced the phone on the nightstand. Fortunately, the game had been a blowout, with the Capitals winning easily. No adrenaline to keep him awake tonight. He closed his eyes and slowed his breathing, trying to control the images and thoughts that flashed through his mind. Never worked. Bedtime was when he chased the rabbit trails. See where they led him. Replayed the past and pondered the future. One kept him awake at night. The other got him out of bed in the morning. The buzzing and dinging of his phone jolted his heart, and he squeezed his eyes closed before blinking several times and picking up the device. He didn't recognize the number, but he did know the area code. 202. Washington, D.C. He cleared his throat and removed any sleepiness from his voice. Agent Winter. Good evening, Winter. Hope I didn't wake you. Jeremy recognized the voice immediately. though if you didn't count the dreams, it'd been a dozen years since he'd last heard it in Afghanistan. He'd have been happy to never hear it again. Colonel Kronfeld? Good memory. Been a while. As if he could forget. What can I do for you? Son, it's more like what I can do for you. Son? Kronfeld couldn't have been more than 50, barely older than Jeremy. How's that? Let's get together soon. Have a chat about old times. Absolutely the last thing Jeremy wanted to do. If he needed to talk to someone about Afghanistan, it wouldn't be with Kronfeld. And the Colonel knew that. What was going on? Jeremy sat up and swung his feet to the floor. I'm not sure. Heard you got transferred. St. Louis, is it? White-collar investigations now? How's that working for you? And there was a not-so-subtle implication that he'd been responsible for Jeremy's relocation, which meant he could arrange to undo it as well. A retired Marine colonel didn't have that kind of power, but his U.S. Senator wife did. But why? Jeremy rubbed his forehead. I go where I'm assigned. Of course you do. We're all just soldiers obeying orders, trying to hold the world together, am I right? I do what I have to do. We all do, son. We all do. Now, as it turns out, I'll be in Missouri in the next day or so. How about you and me get together? Dinner on me? St. Louis has a wonderful Italian restaurant. St. Louis has wonderful Italian restaurants. Pick one. I can be reached at this number. If that's all the same to... I'm not asking. Tomorrow night. 19:30. If I need to, I can have Director Bailey arrange things for us. That won't be necessary. I'll make the reservations. Good. Looking forward to it then. I'll pick you up outside your apartment building. Great to talk to you again, son. Got a lot to catch up on. Kronfeld knew where he lived. He'd done some digging, but why? Jeremy fell back in bed and switched on the TV. A West Coast hockey game. Not a fan of either team. But that didn't matter. The game was nothing more than background noise to his thoughts. Colonel Ramsay Kronfeld was back. Why and for how long, Jeremy didn't know. Not yet. He reached over and grabbed his Glock 19 off the nightstand, then popped the magazine to confirm it was full. 15 rounds, plus one in the pipe. Backup magazine in the drawer. Old habits die hard. Old memories? Even harder. Chapter 14. Mason opened the blinds of the kitchen's bay window, allowing the early morning light to saturate the room. The pinkish-orange glow on the horizon highlighted a smattering of clouds, but that would change soon enough. Rain was coming his way. Best to get out and get the work done before the showers hit. Morning, babe. Paula Miller dropped half a slab of bacon into the cast iron skillet and looked over her shoulder at her husband. The sizzling crescendoed, and she scooted the pieces around, letting the fat render and pop. Get enough sleep? You tossed and turned all night. Mornin', Mason said. He nuzzled his face into her hair and bit her earlobe. I swear the smell of bacon could wake the dead. She giggled and swatted his hand. too early for that foolishness. Now go on before you make me burn breakfast. He kissed the back of her neck and took a seat at the yellow dinette table. Everything sat in its proper position. Half a glass of orange juice in front of the plate, a steaming cup of coffee next to it, the newspaper off to the right and open to the sports page. "The boys not up yet?" he asked. "They're stirring. I'll make sure they're ready in time for the school bus. A couple more weeks and they'll be out for the summer. Seems like this year's flying by." She flipped the bacon and stepped back from the stove. "They'll be down here soon enough once they get a whiff of breakfast cooking." True enough. He took a sip of coffee, looked into the mug, and set it back on the table. "Got an email from the bank last night." She turned toward him. "Turn us down again?" He grunted. "Yeah, they said we didn't have enough collateral to cover a new loan. What with the other outstanding balances, said they'd reconsider if I'd be willing to put at least some of the land up to secure the money. Not sure how we're going to get the planter fixed before spring. I can probably rig it good enough to get the cotton in and a bit of corn in the fall, but after that, who knows? Could sell off the cattle, I guess. But that's how they do it, you know? They take it away piece by piece until there's nothing left. We'll get by. We always do. October's not that far off. We'll bring in enough money on the pumpkins and corn maze to get everything fixed up. And if not, we'll find another way. Got no choice, do we? No, we don't. Now straighten up. I don't want the kids to worry. You'll fix things. You always do." She pivoted back toward the stove, and he swatted her rear. She looked back over her shoulder, and he winked at her. "You want your eggs scrambled?" she asked. "Sounds great. Sprinkle a little cheese on there, too." Lucas and Andy shuffled into the kitchen, dressed, but looking like they'd been hanging out on the clothesline all night. Their red creases on their faces pointed to hair that would need to be drenched before there'd be any hope of it laying down. Mason chuckled at the pair. "You two look like you had a rough night. Might want to look in the mirror before you head off to school." Both boys grunted their responses and dragged themselves into the chairs around the table. Paula brought the eggs, bacon, and biscuits and sat next to her husband. All bowed their heads, held their hands with Mason, while Mason recited grace. As soon as the amen came, forks and knives went to work, clanking against bowls, jelly jars, and butter dishes. "Supposed to get some rain the next few days," Mason said. "I'll have to hold off on putting out the cotton." Lucas grabbed his second biscuit and shoved a bite of bacon inside it. Should be all right as long as you get it in by the end of the month, right, Dad? Still got a couple of weeks. Mason reached over and mussed with both boys' hair. "I'll make farmers out of you two yet. We'll be fine. Plenty of time to get the seeds in the ground." Paula grinned, slathered butter on a biscuit, placed it on her husband's plate. "They've got a good teacher." Mason nodded. "Best way to learn is by doing it. My daddy showed me, and his daddy showed him. Supposed to be that way. Book learning is good, but until a man gets the feel of dirt, he can't be a farmer." "Oh," Paula said. "After a day in the fields, those two have the feel of dirt, all right. The look and smell of it, too. Just boys being boys, Paula. Don't figure I was much different back when we met, was I?" "That's the truth right there. But I saw through the dirt to the man underneath." She leaned toward her husband and he pecked her on the lips. The boys squirmed. poked each other and scrunched their noses. "What?" Mason said. "Don't you two have girlfriends yet?"
Ew.
5-year-old Andy said. "Girls are gross." "We are?" Paula said. "You're not a girl. You're a mom. That's different." Mason smiled. "I'm not so sure about that. Now listen up. I need you boys to take care of your mom this weekend. I've got some business to tend to out of town. Since it's going to rain, it'll be a good time to go." Paula licked her lips and poked at the scrambled eggs on her plate. "How long will you be gone?" "No more than a couple of days, probably. Monsanto's running a seminar up in Cape Girardeau on some of the new weed control sprays. Thought I'd check into it." She took a deep breath and stared at her plate. "Want me to come keep you company? I'm sure I could get a sitter for the boys." Mason shook his head. "You'd be bored, honey. Heck, I'll be bored, but I need to keep up on the latest stuff. I'll be home as soon as I can. Promise." Paula nodded, but kept her eyes focused on her food. "Sure. Maybe next time." "Count on it," he said. "Now somebody slide the strawberry jelly over this way. A man can't get any work done on an empty belly. Isn't that right, boys?" Mumbled agreement filtered from food-packed mouths. Andy had apple butter smeared around his mouth, and Lucas reached for what had been his 5th piece of bacon. Good, strong boys who'd grow into tough farmers. Had to be if they were going to survive everything this life would throw at them. Weather, banks, Uncle Sam, crop prices, all conspiring against him, his family, and his land. They had to be a strong unit, banded together against all threats. Their home had to be a haven from outside forces, a fortress against anything that would dare come against them. The pressure against them was building, wearing him down, shoving thoughts of giving up. They wouldn't win. Not this time. Not ever. All he needed was to reset and get a fresh outlook. Clean himself of doubts and the burdens, and remember what it was to enjoy life. He licked his lips. Time to go hunting. Chapter 15. Mason tossed the collection of herbicide pamphlets, business cards, and freebies into the cracked vinyl passenger seat of his pickup. The new weed killer might be a good thing, but only corporations would be able to afford it. Family farms like his were out of luck. That's why most of the friends he'd grown up with had sold their farms and moved on. They all said they wanted stability. They got tired of the randomness of weather and the seed and the pests and the buyers. They were sick of making a fortune one year and losing everything the next. Of spending hundreds of thousands of dollars for a single piece of equipment. Times changed, they said, and the smart ones changed with them. They recognized that farming's a business, just like the auto parts store or the Dollar General. Once you understood that, life got simpler, and you got stability. Mason spit out the window and ran the back of his hand along his bottom lip. 40 plus years he'd been farming. Wasn't even 5 yet when his daddy showed him how to plant a vegetable garden. Didn't have all the education and science they had nowadays. But it got done. Had to. Wasn't any choice. He pulled the wire-rimmed glasses from his face and cleaned them with his checkered flannel shirt. Stability. If that's what you want, go work at the frozen food factory in town. Sell off your heritage. Either the farming's in your blood, or it's not. Dad taught him to deal with the stress. The pressure's got to get out one way or another, and if you direct it at your family, things only got worse. Find your outlet, and don't be shy about using it. Dad was a whittler. When things got bad, he'd sit on the porch, part of a thick oak branch in one hand, his old buck knife in the other. He'd sit out there for hours, shaving that wood down to nothing. No fancy designs or little animals, just kept going until it's gone. When he'd go to the barn and sharpen the knife, stick it in his pocket, and get back to work. You knew not to bother Dad on those days. Let him whittle the worries and anger and stress out of his system so he could focus on farming. He'd pass the knife on to Mason. Its wood grain handle worn to a yellowish tan from years of use. Just as sharp as ever, though. Only one problem. Mason hated whittling. The first was almost 6 years ago. Mason had just turned 40, and it was a rough season at the farm. Low yields on the soybeans. The old combine harvester had finally died, and he'd needed to finagle a new one before the winter wheat came in. Money was trickling in and pouring out. Paula even picked up some part-time work as a substitute teacher. But by the time they paid the babysitter to watch Lucas, it was hardly worth it. Just as well, made him look bad that his wife had to work. A man ought to be able to support his family, and it wasn't happening. He'd gone hunting to improve both his mood and his food supply. A decent white-tailed deer, 170 pounds or thereabouts, would mean they might make it through the winter without having to butcher one of the cows. They had enough vegetables stored in the chest freezer to last 4 or 5 months, as long as they scavenged enough to make at least token payments on their loans. They'd survive until spring. Of course, that'd bring a new set of problems, beginning with convincing someone to lend them money to buy seed. Dwayne Forsberg was almost an accident. Almost. It takes a special kind of idiot to go hiking through Chickasaw Wildlife Refuge during deer hunting season, especially without wearing bright orange. So what if the zone he was in was posted? Hunters hunt. They go where the prey is. And that morning, the quarry was where Dane Forsberg shouldn't have been. There were 2 kinds of hunters. Those that hunt to provide food for family and neighbors, and those that shouldn't be hunting. If it moved, it was fair game, whether deer, duck, coon, or squirrel. Nothing topped the thrill of deer hunting, though. You beat the sun out of bed by hours, donned camos buttoned tight against the cold, and grabbed the thermos of strong coffee with extra sugar as you eased the back door closed so you wouldn't wake the family. The only other vehicles on the road were likely also hunters. And he also nodded and raised a finger off the steering wheel in a greeting. Even though it was dark, he was confident the other drivers returned the gesture. That morning, he tracked alone. A neighbor had offered to join him, but Mason wanted the quiet. He crept through the dark woods, bathed in the pine scent that followed the streams, and listened to the trees and animals as they whispered and stretched their way to a new day. He'd stalked the deer for almost an hour, and was finally in position. The rush of zeroing in on his target 60 yards away across a grassy clearing filled him as everything else faded away. There was just enough light to watch the 12-point buck as the animal moved along the tree line, grazing and alert for any danger. Mason's finger rested on the trigger of his old bolt-action Remington 700. Given to him on his 3rd birthday by his granddad. Uncountable whitetails had fallen victim to its accuracy, and one more was about to join the club. Perfect setup. And then, gone. The deer jumped into the woods, spooked by something. Meat taken from the mouths of his family. He pivoted the rifle to the right and peered through the scope, seeking the culprit. There. A hiker. There must be a trail back in the woods. Couldn't get a good look. What with all the trees, he swung the weapon to the left and focused on a small opening in a group of pines. At the pace the backpacker moved, he should be there in 15 seconds or so. Mason swallowed hard and licked his lips. Heat flared in his ears and the Remington bounced in time with the pulsing of his heart. Pretend. That's all it was. Better move your finger away from the trigger. 10 seconds. The idiot shouldn't be there. Not safe. 8 seconds. A whole morning. Wasted. 5 seconds. Enough venison to feed his family for at least 2 months. 2 seconds. Just another animal. 1. The shot echoed through the pre-dawn, sending a scattering of birds cawing into the sky. Dwayne Frosberg would no longer steal from him or anyone else. A blast of tension exploded from the pressure cooker of his chest. His fingers twitched as excess energy struggled to find a release. Mason wanted desperately to run across the clearing and burn off the adrenaline. Should he go over there? See how much damage a .30-06 cartridge did to a human? Explain to someone that it was all an accident? That he didn't realize the area was posted off limits to hunters? No. The risk was far too high. Questions would be asked, and even if they believed him, he might lose his hunting license. Unacceptable. Easier to fade away and hope he wasn't caught. Could always claim he aimed for a deer and missed. Had no idea he'd shot someone. Gosh, are they okay? Nothing else moved. He turned and crept back into the woods. A few steps. Freeze. Then a few more. Look, but more importantly, listen. Nothing. A few more steps. Quiet. He was alone. Less than 2 hours later, he was home, showered, and getting ready to work the fields. Another 50 acres of winter wheat needed planting, and rain was forecasted for the end of the week. He had to get it done. He grabbed Paula on his way out the door and pulled her to him. "Don't get too tired today," he said. "Maybe see if you can whip up a babysitter and we'll go out to dinner." She shushed him away, smiling widely. "Well, what's got into you today? You're in a mighty good mood, considering you didn't get a deer this morning." "Thinking we might have to get to work on a brother for Lucas tonight." Mason winked at her and jogged to his tractor, eager to go about his chores. He'd found something better than whittling. Chapter 16. A horn honk brought Mason back to reality, and he waved as the Monsanto rep drove past. It was still early, and Paula didn't expect him home until tomorrow anyway. Could head back and surprise her. Maybe take them all out for some fried catfish, and then let the boys play on the four-wheelers until dark. It had been a long winter, and sitting on the front porch swing with his girl and a big glass of sweet iced tea sounded like the perfect Saturday night. He leaned forward and looked up through the cracked windshield. The skies were overcast, but warm, and the threat of mid-May thunderstorm hovered overhead. Not the best of days to be outside. Still. Mason cranked the pickup, pumping the gas pedal until the old truck started, and headed east toward the Trail of Tears State Forest in Illinois, just across the Mississippi. A quick drive through the park wouldn't hurt. Check things out and head on home. Who knows? He might get lucky, and if he hurried, he'd still get to the house at a decent hour. And sweet tea always tasted better when he was relaxed. He drove along the forest's meandering roads with his windows down, enjoying the sights and smells. Beech, sweet gum trees, mingled with oaks and maples to hide the woodland scents or secrets. The rich soil, darkened by years of decaying foliage and wildlife, oozed a dark, earthy scent. He'd give anything if his land smelled like that. Farming took a toll on the soil, and on people too if they let it. He hated turning over the dirt on windy days and seeing the clouds of dust billow off into the atmosphere, but he couldn't afford to let his acreage lie fallow. He turned left off the main street and followed a side road, twisting and turning onto other paths as the mood hit. A few vehicles clustered around a couple of the fire trails, their occupants hiking, picnicking, or doing who knows what. Gotta be careful in places like this. You never know what trouble lay around the next corner. Like that t-shirt he'd spotted up in Gatlinburg. Said, "Paddle faster, I hear banjo music." Another turn, and then a quarter mile later, a lone car parked near a trail entrance. A later model Toyota. Red, with 4 stick figures on the back window. Dad, mom, girl, boy. No dog? He drove several hundred feet past, pulled over, and stepped out of his truck. The forest was thick, and he'd have to fight through some briars to get very deep. A few scratches wouldn't hurt, though. He hoped the chiggers would leave him alone. Worst things the good Lord ever created. Should have sent them into Egypt at the beginning, and Pharaoh would have begged Moses to leave. Once under the tree canopy, the world changed. Hunting did that for a man. It made him feel like he was real, like he had a purpose. The tree huggers and PETA lovers would never appreciate that. Their loss. He moved easily, walking uphill towards a spot where he hoped he could get a better view of the landscape, and more importantly, the trail. A rotting log lay in his path, and he kicked at it. Crumbly slivers of bark peeled off, revealing white grubs, ants, and beetles, scurrying as the dim light invaded their hiding spot. Doubtless other critters were nearby as well. Maybe a fox or a skunk and surely a snake or two. He'd leave them be, as any respectable outdoorsman would. A few moments later, and he crested the rise. As feared, there was no signs of the trail. Too many trees. No matter. Hunting required all his senses. If the eyes were of limited use, his ears would make up the difference. He slowed his movement and crept forward, heel pressing firmly into the ground before he lowered his foot and took another step. If the trail ran straight, he'd have had it by now. But he knew better. Most of the fire trails ran along the ridge tops, meaning he needed to go another 100 yards or so. Down, then up. 2 or 3 birds took flight somewhere off to his left, squawking as they flew overhead. He froze in place and hunted with his eyes. There. His peripheral vision picked up on...
Shh! Little butt crack! Be quiet! This is a ninja mission!
It is a ninja mission! Oh my god. Your time... What? Yeah, your timing couldn't have been better. Here, Mason is trying to creep through the forest all quiet like, and there you are, farting in the wind. I see you're on your computer. Oh boy. Oh, that was fantastic. Where was I? Oh, his peripheral vision picked up movement down the hill near a small opening. He sidled behind, beside a maple and eased to one knee. This time of day could be a deer, but not likely. A squirrel clambered up an oak, jabbering at the unseen creature. Patience. Savor the moment. Confirm your target before acting. Safety first. Gotcha. A glimpse of a faded blue t-shirt through the trees. Seconds later, a better view. A lone figure skirted the clearing in the hollow, maybe 80 yards away. A man wearing shorts and hiking boots, a walking stick in one hand, binoculars in the other. Bird watcher? Nature lover? Prey. Mason's fingers stroked the hilt of the combat knife strapped to his leg. No guns today. Too many people around. And even with a silencer, the echo would bounce around these hills forever and a day. A gunshot would bring attention. The silent slicing of a jugular would not. People are stupid. Not like animals. Always aware of their surroundings. Try sneaking up on a critter and killing it with a knife. Won't happen unless it's already wounded. It'll hear you, smell you, and assume you're a threat. But not people. Oblivious to what was around them. King of the world, top of the food chain. Assuming nothing's going to hurt them because nothing's more dangerous than they are. Stupid. The hiker looked to be in his early 40s and in decent shape. Good. Toting him the almost half-mile back to the truck wouldn't be too difficult. Not like that overweight girl in Kansas. It'd taken 2 weeks for his back to recover from her. Blue shirt, raised his binoculars, and turned in a slow semicircle, scanning the treetops. Twice as he paused and jotted something in a notepad. Birdwatcher. Ugh. Mason waited and planned his hunt. A quick dash to those 2 pines, down to the half-dead sweet gum, over toward the redbud, finally to the clearing. Then wait until Blue Shirt re-entered the trees to move closer. More ambush options that way. He flexed his fingers and pulled camouflage hunting gloves from his pocket. Not that he was concerned about being spotted. Blue Shirt either looked up in the trees or down at the trail. Had no idea his life was already over. That he'd never make it back to his foreign red car with 4 stick figures. Wonder if his family will peel Dad off the back window. He pulled the gloves tight until his fingers pressed against the seams. Had to be careful here. The knife handle tended to get a bit slippery when wet. Chapter 17. The restaurant was fancy, dark, and expensive. An FBI agent's salary would take a beating in a place like this. Jeremy wasn't worried. Kronfeld would pick up the tab. His invitation, his treat. Not like he couldn't afford it. The 2 men sat at a table in the back corner. Kronfeld in a tailor-made black suit and red tie, and Jeremy in freshly pressed jeans and an Oxford shirt. Other than a slight belly bulge, the colonel looked just as he had in Afghanistan. Thin, fair-skinned, and dark eyes, no longer hidden behind glasses. Contacts or LASIK, most likely. His nasally voice defied the Clint Eastwood stereotype of tough Marines. But Jeremy had seen the man in action. Underestimating the colonel would be a dangerous mistake. Try the toasted ravioli, Kronfeld said. Delicious. I'm good, thanks. Kronfeld shrugged and sipped his wine. Suit yourself. Sure you don't want to drink? Water's fine. The Jeremy Winter I knew would have never turned down. You don't know me. Not then, and especially not now. What's this about? Kronfeld placed his empty wine glass on the table and motioned to the sommelier for a refill. To the point. I like it. Fine. Bailey tells me you're doing a bang-up job. One of his best. Uh-huh. And why would my job performance be of interest to you? The wine steward approached the table and displayed the bottle to the colonel, who nodded and waited while the dark red liquid filled the bottom third of the glass. The sommelier faded into the background as the server placed their dinner before them and moved off. Kronfeld studied his plate of shrimp scampi pasta before sampling. Love this stuff. Too bad it doesn't love me. Terrible indigestion. But one of the benefits of traveling without the wife. No one to remind me that I shouldn't eat it. Jeremy brushed most of the red sauce off his chicken parmigiana before taking a bite. You talked to Bailey about me. Why? You and I shared, let's call it an experience, shall we? Isn't that enough reason? Are you responsible for my transfer to St. Louis? The colonel dabbed his lips with the white cloth napkin responsible. Such a strong word. Who can say who's responsible for what? Things happen all the time. Some of them within our control, some not. But you know that, right? The question you need to ask is, how do you gain control of the situation? That's why I'm here. You do something for me, and I'll do something for you. Quid pro quo. Jeremy frowned. And that would be? Certain events transpired during the war. Necessary actions, to be sure, but taken in today's light, they may come across as, shall we say, less than virtuous. So that's it. Jeremy took another bite, stared at the man opposite him, and waited. Kronfeld dropped his napkin and leaned forward. The candle cast dancing shadows across the man's face, making him appear gaunt, almost wraith-like. Winter, things happened over there. Not saying they were right or wrong, only that they happened. Had to be done. I was there. You don't have to explain things to me. The colonel pointed his fork at Jeremy. Exactly. You were there. You understand. These days, people forget. They don't want to remember the anger and panic after 9/11. The things that had to be done to keep Americans safe. I don't have to explain all that to you. Your point? Kronfeld reached inside his jacket, removed a plain white envelope, and handed it to Jeremy. Read that tonight after dinner. Let me know if you have any questions. What is it? A formality. A confidentiality agreement. Simply says that in the interest of national security, you won't discuss certain events with anyone else without official permission. Uh-huh. And what if I've already discussed these certain events with others? Have you? Hi, Durfee! How are you doing today? I hope you're doing well. Where's... Don't forget your chat command. You're just woken up? Yep, don't... I put you in a fun place this time. Just like last time. Well, I hope you had a good sleep. Wait a minute. How are you just woken up? It's 2:43 p.m. here for me. That means it's like almost 9 o'clock in the evening for you, I think. Yeah, 8:43. That's what I mean. Did you take a nap? Or did you just not go to bed last night? I see, yes. You just slept through the day. Nice. Don't forget your personalized chat command. What was that again? It's on top of the corn maze. Well, the corn maze sign. There you are. Oh. Thank you for the daily dab, Caterpie. I figured that, oh, I appreciate it. course. Yeah, I figured since last time you put yourself on the top of the shelves on my last scene that you'd want to be in a high interesting place too. So I put you on the top of the corn maze sign. I'm not trying to segregate you, as trying to give you a fun place to sit like last time. You want to get attacked by— exactly, see? You're the only one thinking about that. Being up there helps chat, and you find that's true. That is true. You can see the way out from all the way up there. So there you go. You're on sentry duty. Yes, you are, and we appreciate you for doing that. Where did I leave off? Formality. I can see something moving. We are reading Coming of Winter by Tom Threadgill. One of my favorite books that I read last year. It was free on, well, free to borrow on Prime Reading. And it had a fascinating approach to the topic, at least like a FBI agent and serial killer, because not only does it tell the story from the FBI agent's perspective, it also tells the story from the serial killer's perspective as well. So you get both sides of the coin, which I found absolutely fascinating. So you can see the differences of point of view and how each party views the events of the book. And I found it absolutely fascinating. And this, I would have to say, is probably one of my favorite books that I've ever read. So I was very happy to share it with everybody. We're almost 100 pages into the book, believe it or not. We're on page 89 right now. I may read for another maybe 30 minutes or so, and then we can call it a stopping point. I think I only wanted to do about 4 hours of the book today, so maybe, I guess, we'll do a little bit more than 100 pages. I'm pretty sure it won't take me that long to get to page 100. Yeah, definitely won't take me 30 minutes to get there. Let's see, formality. And what if I've already discussed these certain events with others? Oh. Have you? Jeremy shook his head. Not a topic I'd prefer to talk about. Thought so. Then we agree. Simple enough. Do we? Why now? It's been a dozen years. Why the sudden concern? Kronfeld waved to the wine steward and motioned to his nearby empty glass. Closing the loop. Trying to move on. But aren't we all? And the others? Did they sign? The others? Jeremy dropped his fork on the plate and ignored the stares from the nearby tables. Plenty of others were there, Colonel. Can't imagine I'm the only one you're talking to. True enough, I suppose. They were all still military, though. It was standard procedure to sign as a condition of discharge. Don't believe that's accurate. Easy enough to check out. The Colonel grinned, and even in the subdued lighting, Jeremy could see his nicotine-stained teeth. You got me. Allow me to clarify. For those particular men, it was a condition of discharge. Think of it as our own personal insurance policy. Throw in a few phrases like war crimes or court-martial, and everyone was happy enough to forget they were even there. Sounds like blackmail. Such a dirty word. I assure you, Winter, those men are better off today because of me. Better off? What cost? And if I sign this, what? I get transferred back to DC? Oh, I would never interfere with the inner workings of the FBI. I have no control over such issues. But I will say that I hope you can break your apartment lease on short notice. And if not, I'm sure Bailey can work something out. Jeremy pushed his half-eaten dinner to the side and dropped his napkin on the top of the plate. And if I don't sign, what happens then? Let's not ruin a perfectly good evening. The details are spelled out in the agreement, and I'm sure it's all to your satisfaction. Be a good career move for you, too. Trust me, Winter. You'll like having powerful friends. Makes life a whole lot sweeter. Take a week. Think it over. Talk to that redhead of yours if you want. He's done his research. Knows about Maggie. As for a powerful friend, he'd never be that. There was no trust on either side. If he gave Kronfeld what he wanted, maybe Jeremy's life would get better. Maybe not. And the one... Oh, thank you for the biddies. You didn't have to do that. You're too sweet. Thank you. It is not your job. The only thing required of you is to be my friend, which is not even a requirement. If you don't want to be my friend, you're more than welcome not to be, but I appreciate your friendship. Nothing else is required. I appreciate your kindness. It definitely does not go unnoticed. Or unappreciated. And I'm happy that you're part of the community. And thank you for spending time whenever you have it. I appreciate you. I lost my place. As for powerful friend, he'd never be that. There was no trust on either side. If Surfy. That's a lot of triangles. Thank you for the biddies. You're so nice. Whoop. Hold on. We'll do another one of these. I think I need my other keyboard. I put it back. I do need my other keyboard. I don't think I can do it from that. I have to wait 46 minutes and 15 seconds before giving Surfy another shout out. Okay, I guess I can only do it once every, I think an hour and a half or so, but at least I was able to give you one of my shout outs. You got the prettier one. That I have no cooldown on. Twitch is stupid for doing that. But the sentiment is still there. Mm-hmm. If he gave Kronfeld what he wanted, maybe Jeremy's life would get better. Maybe not. And the one card he held, his knowledge of the things that happened in Afghanistan, would be handed over to the only person other than himself. 70... thank you! Thank you for the triangle, biddies! I appreciate it. I really do. Thank you so much. Surfy. Have more? I appreciate all the triangles that you bring to the chat. You're so nice. Thank you so much. I am almost done with this chapter, and it's taking me forever to get through it. Because of your constant triangles. Jeremy's life would get better, maybe not. When you got 95 left, I had no chance but use triangles. Oh, well, yeah. Yeah, that's right, because I think the diamonds are the purple ones are the 100 or whatever. And if anybody wants to buy bits, just as a general rule of thumb, if you're going to buy bits, buy them from the desktop, from like the web page from Twitch instead of the mobile app. You will save money that way. It costs you more to buy bits from the mobile app than it does on the desktop web page. Same goes for subscriptions as well. It's like a whole $2 cheaper to subscribe to somebody from a website on a desktop versus it is on the... jumping up and down right now. Isn't it a banger? All thanks to the song goes to Artie McFarty. He's the one who made it for me. And I will make sure to add your redeem to the list after I'm finished. I know that's 2 redeems I need to account for. You do, yes. Yes, you do. Let's see, I think... Yeah, Artie McFarty had one earlier. You climb into the peak right now? Oh, are you playing peak? I have, Steam. I think I ended the program running in the background on my task manager. When I'm not going to be playing a game for stream. No! Well, you're going to have a lot of climbing to do. I think Will has... 14? Yeah, I think Will has 14 Wall of Fame redeems. And, I think Artie McFarty just got his 11th? Yes, I know. But, I mean, yeah, 11th. But, to be fair, Will lives with me. So, I mean, we work relatively the same hours, and we both hardly ever leave the house. So he's always here when I'm live. So, and he's got my stream open. So he knows better than anyone what my schedule is. So it's a given that he's gonna have the most amount of points. Let me see if I can get done with this chapter really fast. Maybe. And the one card he held, his knowledge of the things that happened in Afghanistan, would be handed over to the only person other than himself who could be harmed by it. Yeah, life might get sweeter, but it could leave an awful bad taste in your mouth. The wine steward edged to the table and refilled Kronfeld's glass. The colonel waited until he left, then took a sip. A small drop of the maroon liquid hung on his upper lip, and his tongue darted out to retrieve it. An excellent vintage winter. You really should try it. Now tell me, shall we take a chance on the tiramisu? If only. Yeah, No, I don't think we can do anything with, like, the bat coins, but, like, loyalty points and stuff. I'm not sure if... I feel like I've got loyalty points or whatever set up, I think, for both. I think it's for both sound alerts... Not sound alerts, both, Stream Elements and Streamlabs, so technically you got loyalty points for both. Let me see. I think this works. Oh, okay. Evidently that just, displays a link so you can see it. That's so stupid. Instead of just giving, like, the top couple. I think maybe something else also might... I haven't looked too much into it, because I think those points really only count if I'm doing, like, those chat command games or something that has to do with betting and, or buying tickets for a giveaway or something like that, but I haven't even bothered looking into any of those, because in my experience, most people don't use them. And that's gonna take a lot of work on my effort, or a lot of effort on my end to set that kind of stuff up. And I know I'm just gonna be disappointed because I'm gonna waste my time doing all that and be like, aw, nobody did it. And I mean, I don't really have anything to give away either, and yeah, so I guess it's kind of pointless to have those points, but they're there just in case I ever decided to do anything with them. Okay, well now we only have 12 minutes until the 4-hour mark, so I guess maybe we'll get to the page 100 and then stop. Or at least. Okay, page 103 is the start of chapter 20, so we'll read 2 more chapters, I guess. Chapter 18. Jeremy sat alone in his apartment, a single lamp fighting to hold the 2 a.m. darkness at bay. The agreement lay on the sofa beside him, waiting for his 4th read. Official FBI letterhead from the director. That took some pull. Bailey's boss rarely got involved in personnel matters. Someone with pull must have interceded, and it wasn't hard to figure out who. Kronfeld's wife, Senator Diane Morgans, was the highest-ranking Democrat on the Senate Appropriations Committee. The colonel probably didn't give a rat's hindquarters whether anyone knew about his exploits. Bet he brags about them to his buddies over drinks. But his wife was a different story. Jeremy didn't know anything about their relationship, but he could make an educated guess. Kronfeld, a retired war hero. Morgans, a lifelong politician from an elite Pennsylvania family. The colonel standing ramrod straight in his dress blues, while the senator held her chin high beside him, made for a fine photo op. Her access to money, and more importantly power, gave him all he could ever want. And for some reason, Jeremy was now a threat to them. Or more specifically to the senator. Ramrod! But how? He'd never met Diane Morgans, never even spoken to her, and Jeremy had never seemed to be a problem for her before. Was it possible she didn't know her husband's history until recently? Not likely. I don't think that works. Looks like a bunch of computer mumbo jumbo to me. I don't know. Because Switch doesn't understand computer mumbo jumbo. Evidently. More specifically, this never met Diane and never spoken to her, and Jeremy had never seemed to be a problem for her before. Was it possible she didn't know her husband's... not likely. Lifetime politicians don't do anything without considering the impact on future elections. The colonel had surely been vetted heavily before Morgans agreed to marry him. That was, what, 3, maybe 4 years after Jeremy left Afghanistan? Around the time Kronfeld retired. Seemed like ancient history. He read the agreement again, short and specific. He, Jeremy Winter, would never discuss the events of Afghanistan with anyone without written permission from the director of the FBI. Sprinkle in a few terms like national security and public interest, and there you had it. Oh, and if he did speak of his time overseas, well then, it would be off to prison to await a trial that would never come. And his reward for signing the document? Nothing. Kronfeld had hinted that a transfer back to DC would happen, but if that were so, it certainly wasn't spelled out here. It was abundantly clear which party had the power in this situation. And if he chose not to sign it, again, goodness, nothing. But Jeremy held no illusions. There are plenty of other FBI offices much farther away. They'd keep moving him until they found one that forced him to sign. Dangle ever-growing carrots in front of him. Or worse, drag Maggie into it. Force her to transfer, knowing she couldn't leave the state because of her divorce agreement. She'd have to resign from the bureau. He flicked the paper toward the coffee table and watched as it fluttered to the floor. He needed to talk to Maggie. Soon. Get everything out in the open. She had a right to know, even if it meant risking their relationship. He needed to see that part. She needed to see that part of him. What he was truly capable of. Outside of a debriefing, he'd never spoken of Afghanistan. What he'd seen. Done. And if he signed that document, he'd never be able to tell her. Couldn't do that. It'd be hard for both of them, but they'd get through it. Assuming, of course, she wanted to. He flicked off the lamp, laid back on the couch, and told himself not to dream. Not tonight. It didn't work. I don't think it works that way. Especially not in the chat. Okay. Chapter 19. $1 million. That was the prescription doctor's bail. And in less than 5 hours, the money had been posted. No doubt the FBI, U.S. Marshals, and bounty hunters would soon be looking for the good doctor. Sometimes, crime did pay. At least for a while. Not the way Jeremy wanted to start his day, especially after the early morning nightmares. Swipe or no swiping. He needed to talk to Maggie and tell her about the dinner with Kronfeld. But she was in some sort of scheduled training all morning. Another productive day in the bureau. It'd have to wait until tonight when they were off work. He couldn't go into much detail without explaining everything. And that wasn't going to happen on a phone call. He'd bounce a few things around and try to drive up to Virginia this weekend. Long drive, but it would give him time to think about how to explain Afghanistan, how to ask her forgiveness, and promise he'd changed, and hope that she believed him. The late May sun powered its way through his office window, reflected off the too white wall behind him, and pinpointed his laptop screen. He shifted the computer and angled his chair. Should be good for another 15 minutes before needing to repeat the process. 34 names still on his list of missing Indiana women. He'd removed 15 for various reasons, usually something minor that didn't sit right with him. Not a hunch, more of a knowing. Like a puzzle piece in the wrong box. He couldn't explain it to anyone, except maybe Maggie. But the women he'd taken off the list didn't belong in the same puzzle as Sarah Gordon and Catherine Mae Blackston. The question was, did any of the others fit? For that matter, were Goldman and Blackston even in the same box? Jeremy squeezed his eyes shut and tried to force the thoughts and images from his mind. Too much clutter and too much rabbit trails. Which one to chase. Missing women, and What's for Lunch, and Maggie, and his next case, and Kronfeld. He knew which one he wanted to run after, but she was a few states away. And if he didn't sign the confidentiality agreement, that distance was going to grow. He took a deep breath, glanced upward, and pulled the computer closer. It didn't take long for the details beside each name to begin to blur. So he slowed, pausing deliberately as he moved between the columns of data, allowing the information to soak into him. Age, ethnicity, height, weight, hair color, eye color. Next row. Jeremy scrolled through the list 3 times before giving up. If there was a connection, he didn't see it. He could expand his search to surrounding states, make the puzzle bigger, but without knowing what he was looking for, it would be a waste of time. When all else fails, put the pieces back in the box. Shake it, and start over. He clicked to reset the NCIC filters and scrolled to the bottom of the new list. 111 names. A press of the mouse button, and 62 men disappeared, leaving his original list. The white cursor arrow hovered over each option in turn as he debated which to sort by. He tried them all multiple times already, so what difference would it make? Doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. Isn't that what they say the definition of insanity is? Maybe on a t-shirt, but not in real life. Insanity was no motto. In his 2+ decades with the Bureau, he'd seen the damage broken minds could do, creating their own versions of reality, listening to the voices no one else heard, doing the things normal people found abhorrent. The Bureau figured that there were between 30 and 60 serial killers at work in the US at any given time. Not as easily identified as the mustached villain tying the girl to the railroad tracks while he waves her house deed in the air. This evil was far more dangerous. His face was the bagger at the supermarket, or the high school track coach, the city bus driver, or the accountant down in the strip mall. Anonymous, deadly, and unstoppable until it was too late for at least some victims. And then the neighbors all gathered on the nightly news saying, "He was just a nice young man. We had no idea." Jeremy tapped a finger on his cheek and stared at the top name on the list. Patricia Atwater, 24 years old, blonde, who disappeared almost 18 months ago. Not a peep since then. Worked at a convenience store. Still lived with her folks. No kids. Couple of boyfriends, neither of whom were considered suspects. Nothing that might connect her with Goldman or Blackston. Sorry, Patricia. Hope you're alive and well wherever you are. His cell phone vibrated and he glanced at it. Text message from Maggie. Hour 2 of this meeting. Sleepy. What you doing? Excuse me. Normally, he preferred texting or emails over phone conversations, but not with Maggie. It robbed him of the chance to hear her voice. Still, this was better than nothing. Between cases, staying busy though. How's the meeting? HR stuff. Tolerance in the workplace. If I have to roleplay, I'm gonna hurt someone. Jeremy laughed and ran his hands over tingling arms. I'd like to see that. And you. Smiley face. Me too. Working your theory on the 2 women? Yeah. Looking at others missing in the state. Not finding anything. One more one more time through the list, and I'm going to let it go. Don't get Bailey mad. Seems like that's a habit of mine. Better get back to the list before I get a new assignment. Many names left? Still at the top of the list. Pat Atwater is about to get scratched off, I think. Looking at missing men, too? Jeremy stared at the message. Men? Serial killers almost always stuck to one sex. Almost. Men or women. They didn't usually cross lines, but on rare occasions, it did happen. Herbert Mullen killed 13 people, men and women, because he was convinced there was no other way to stop an earthquake in California. His murders were completely random, and he explained his actions to the jury by saying, "A rock doesn't make a decision when falling, it just falls." Another text came in from Maggie. "You still there?" "Yeah, gotta go. And thanks." "For what?" "Give Rebecca a kiss and a hug from me. Call you tonight." Jeremy reset his list and added the 32 men back into the mix. Several clicks and filters later, nothing stood out. If there was a pattern, he couldn't see it. Maybe he was looking for something that wasn't there. A connection to a killer that didn't exist. That was preferable to the only other option. That they had another Herbert Mullen on their hands. Killing at random to appease the voices in their head, or to stop an earthquake, or because they liked watching people die. He rubbed his eyes and scrolled through the summary of each missing male cases. 50 minutes later, Jeremy had his answer. Not enough to convince anyone, especially Bailey, but he knew. A killer was at work. Not quite random, but awfully close. 2 possible male victims to add to the 2 females. The death count had doubled to 4. 2 of the bodies missing, 2 mutilated. All linked to state or national parks in Indiana. He needed to expand the search and check bordering states, dig deeper into Indiana cases for more possible links. Questioned the detectives who investigated the cases of the 2 men. Find out if his computer dinged. The signal with an important email waited in his inbox. Bailey assigning the next case. Top priority. Identity fraud involving dead people connected with millions of dollars in state tax refunds across the Midwest. Briefing scheduled ASAP. Jeremy pressed his lips together and ran a hand across his chest. Probable serial killer or stolen government money. Death versus taxes. He needed more information on the murders. Something, anything, that would convince Bailey of a connection between the killings. It was there. Jeremy was sure of it. He had to find the connection soon, or send his suspicions to the sidelines. Working the case as time allowed. He could stall a day, maybe 2, but no more. Find something that may not exist and prove it to someone who doesn't believe. God help him. Okay. Now we've finished chapter 19 and we're on page 103. I think that's a pretty good start to the book. I mean, I would say that we did a pretty good chunk for today. I hope everybody is enjoying the book so far. It is definitely one of my personal favorites. And honestly, I'm really happy that people voted on it. So I was excited to get it started today. I'm glad that you enjoyed it, Wolf. I appreciate you stopping by and actually, you know, staying for the whole time. I know that it is, I think you might be in the same... You're either in the same time zone as Surfy, or it's later for you. I can never remember. But, as of now, I'm only planning on doing 11:25 for me. Oh, yep, it's a little bit later than... You're 2 hours ahead of Surfy then. Okay. Your time zone is even more not great when it comes to my American schedule, but I appreciate you being here nonetheless. But as of right now, I'm only planning on doing, I think the ambiance helps as well. It's like, yes, it is a story. It is quite literally a book. But it's a good book, and one that I really like. And once we actually, I mean, I'm glad that we at least were able to get to, at least enough involved with Mason that I hope people have at least either attentions have been, or their interest has been piqued enough to want to know more. Cucumber. Oh, with cucumber. I thought it was a typo for a second. Nope. Lie down with cucumber. Yeah, a nice little, like, relaxing ASMR stuff. Or just, like... And I think, actually... What is this? Yeah, the title of the YouTube video that I have playing in the background is called Cricket, Bonfire Sounds, White Noise, Studying and Sleeping, Sleep-Inducing Campfire, 8 hours. No, you spelled it right. You spelled it right. I promise. I do too. But, as of right now, I'm only planning on doing, Stories Time streams, on the last Sunday of each month. 4 hours for another story? No. Well, we're gonna... I mean, I'd like to power through, or at least continue with this book till we finish it, because it's one of my favorites. I haven't stood up in 4 hours. I also haven't eaten anything since breakfast, so I would like to be able to have a little downtime. As of right now, what I'm planning on doing is having at least once a month storytime streams, and it'll be on the last Sunday of the month, unless there's more interest in this to at least I guess justify doing this more than just once a month. I'm not exactly sure. It's difficult from my perspective to kind of gauge interest based on how difficult it was just to get people to vote on what book we should read. So that sort of tells me that only some people are minorly interested, so I think I might keep it at just once a month for now. And if more people jump on board, then we can revisit doing it more than once a month, but I think that's the maximum for now. But I'm happy that it seems that you guys are enjoying this book. I'm I'm very excited for us to get a little bit further, because towards definitely the end of the book is quite intense, and I'm very excited to get there. Obviously, we're not even halfway through it yet, but I mean, how long is this book? There is an epilogue, so we'll include the epilogue. There are 395 pages, so it might take a couple months to get through it, because if we read 100 pages today, probably like 100 pages next month. Yep, it may take about maybe 4 months to get through the book, depending upon how often you guys would like to sit and listen. But that'll be completely up to you guys on what it is that you'd like to do. I can make a poll in the... Storytime chat channel I have in the main welcome section in the Discord, of like keeping it at once a month, or even I guess moving it up to every other week. I'll keep it open for I guess maybe either 3 days or a week or something like that. And if those who were here, because I think everybody who is here is in the Discord, you can at least tell me if it's something that you'd be interested in more of. If nobody interacts with this one either, then I'll just keep it at once a month for the people who were here today. I know y'all have busy lives, so I'm not trying to make anybody feel obligated in any kind of way, especially since we're doing like these larger chunks of time. It would, I guess it would give people something to listen to on the VOD, but I also appreciate people who are stopping by and listening along with me while I'm here. But that's all I really have for today. I will put the poll up after I'm done. And, let's see, what do we have? Peak is a maybe this week. I don't know, since that's really close to, like, New Year's Eve and New Year's Day and all that kind of stuff. I'm not sure exactly the availability of everybody for that particular day, so peak on Thursday will be a maybe. I will not be able to stream repo this upcoming Friday. I'm getting a tattoo after work, and we'll be starting a brand new series on Saturday of next week that I'm very excited for. I had several different people highly recommend this game to me, so we will be starting Soma next Saturday, and I'm very much looking forward to that. Hangovers or mountain climbing? I mean, I would prefer mountain climbing because I'm not a drinker, but I am getting Chewie's paw print tattooed on the my left wrist. That is the only tattoo I've ever wanted. And it's been a hard Christmas season without him. I'm not gonna do an IRL stream. I am not. I am not. Absolutely not. I don't have any other tattoos. I don't plan on getting any other tattoos, and I'm probably gonna be a bitch about it. I'm really gonna be a huge bitch about it. I have no idea how my pain tolerance is, and that's not something. It is not something that I wish for you guys to make fun of me about forever afterwards, because this is important for me, and it's something that I want to do for me. And, yeah. But it's just gonna hurt. I know it is. And I think it's gonna hurt more than I think it's gonna hurt. And, I'm nervous about it. I'm definitely nervous about it. The only thing I can think of is that, I feel like that they're probably gonna need to, like, seatbelt. Hey, shut up! You only have one experience, and it's on your dead arm. My husband has a tattoo, but he got it on the arm he can't feel. So, of course, you say that it doesn't hurt. Oh, no. I'm a wimp. No, I can't, actually. I'm not sure if the, it is... It's the FDA, which is the... I'm not sure if the FDA is a thing that Canada does, but it's the Federal Drug Administration, or the Food and Drug Administration, has issued cease and desist letters to companies around the nation that sell numbing creams, specifically for tattoos, for facial procedures like minor surgery, like lip fillers and stuff like that, and for piercings. It's issued a cease and desist on the actual creams that the companies produce, because they are they're selling their creams with over the I guess the legal amount of lidocaine in it. Only cream, the over-the-counters is 4% lidocaine that's allowed in those, like, pain reliever creams. And most of those companies sell numbing cream with 5% of this lidocaine stuff in it. And people are putting large amounts on whatever surface that they're wanting to get done, and then wrapping it in cellophane. And then, so that's a large amount of like something that's over the, I guess, legal amount that they're allowed to put into something. And then with being pierced viciously with tattooing needles, that is then forcing not only the ink, but the 5% lidocaine into the bloodstream, which then can counteract with certain medications that someone could be taking. Or that's a lot of pain relieving cream that's just shoved into your skin, and that could cause cardiac arrest, I think, and potential, like, damage to the internal organs. So I've decided to just try to tough it out and be a big girl. Tattoo goo is all you need. You know, I got one of those tubes of the, I tried out one of the ones that, before I read the article about the cease and desist, that had the 5% lidocaine in it, and I slathered the area that I wanted done in it, and I let it sit for 45 minutes to an hour, and then I used one of those lancets, like the really thin needles that are used to, like, prick the fingertip for diabetics to test their blood. And I kind of, like, stabbed myself a few times with that, and I felt it no problem. It does nothing for the surface of my skin, so I don't think that'll work on me. I'm just gonna have to suck it up and not be a big bitch baby about it. I don't know how that's gonna go, but It's not like I'm getting SpongeBob or some stupid thing tattooed onto myself. This is something that I want for me. So I'm going to suck it up. Oh. Gotcha, okay. I know, like, I have seen stuff like that, where it keeps the surface of the skin, moisturized enough during the healing process. I've also heard to get, Aquaphor, which, that reminds me, I still need to buy more Aquaphor. I have a week. But anyway, that's what I'm doing on... it's probably not gonna look very pretty. So, I may or may not show you guys on Saturday when I start Soma. Yeah. Probably also cheaper. But, if it looks bad, as in, like, very red and inflamed and, whatever, then I'm not gonna bother showing anybody on Saturday. It'll be all up to how my skin behaves afterwards. I have very sensitive skin, so more than likely it's not gonna look that great afterwards. It's probably gonna look very mad. But whenever it looks presentable, I will share it with you guys if you want to see it. Otherwise, maybe Thursday, but definitely Saturday is when I will see you guys next. 2 or 3 weeks? Yeah. Excuse me. I've been sitting too long, my neck hurts. So, look for the poll if you're interested in helping with that. I'll see you maybe Thursday, but definitely Saturday. I'm not gonna bother to raid. I don't feel up to it. I'm tired and hungry. So, I'll see you guys later, and thank you guys so much for stopping by and hanging out with me and listening to one of my favorite books and enjoying one of my favorite books with me. I'm excited for you guys to hear more. Yes, kapow. And thank you again to Caterpie for resubscribing. I greatly appreciate you being here and thinking of me enough to, I guess, to want to support not only me but my channel in that way as well. You're very sweet, and I appreciate you being here. And also, of course, the biggest thank you to Surfy for coming in and making it rain triangles up in this bitch. I appreciate you too. And everyone else who came in and just hung out. Wolf for being here the whole time, and Will for being here the whole time, and Artie McFarty for being here the whole time. And I think I saw a couple other people stop by. I know Sam was here for a bit of time, and I saw Oreo didn't say anything, but Oreo was here. And so you come back, thank you for stopping by. And I saw that Honor was here as well. And I see Shawl is there, so hello from the lurker position, and I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. So thank you to anybody and everybody else who stopped by today. Greatly appreciate anybody who gives just a little bit of their day to me. But that's all I have for you guys today. So I will see you in the next stream. Thank you so much for stopping by, and I will see you later. Alright guys, have a good one. Bye bye.